We are back, and we are taking up public hearing number 1, which is a public hearing and final assessment resolution for the long-awaited Evergreen Windstone Water Main Municipal Service Benefit Unit.
Does it say long awaited?
Yes, it does. 4 years, right?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mr. David Duncan will be making the presentation. Donna, could you put on the PowerPoint?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, David Duncan, Senior Project Manager for the Utilities and Solid Waste Department. Martin County Utilities received a petition from the Evergreen Windstone residents asking the Utilities Department to ballot the area for the provision of water service to 400 parcels that currently did not have availability of water service. After the completion of construction drawings and cost proposals received from our annual underground contractors, a staff-level workshop was held on December 3rd at the IRSC Wolf Center to explain the project scope with associated costs and the assessment process. A Florida Department of Environmental Protection permit for construction had been received by this department, and the lowest cost proposal had been selected from the Martin County annual underground construction contractors. So as you see on slide 2, this is a site plan of the Evergreen Club and Windstone community. Some of the obvious anticipated benefits to the community would be enhanced water quality. That would ensure the reliability of the water supply, as well as continuous supply during power outages. And because we will be installing fire hydrants along the water supply system, there is a potential for the homeowners to recognize a reduction in homeowners' insurance rates. The proposed assessment includes 400 properties at 400 ERCs. As indicated in the slide, the total project cost is $5,341,570. And the Utilities Department is contributing $1,371,000, reducing the annual assessable cost to $3,970,570. Therefore, the sum is divided by 400 equivalent residential connections for the estimated prepayment amount of $9,926.43 per connection. That equates to an annual payment of $634.86 per unit amortized over 20 years at a rate of 1.52% plus interest and standard fees. Martin County Utilities currently serves 36,700 water customers and has an average residential consumption use of about 6,000 gallons per month at a rate of $2.50 per 1,000 gallons. Based on the average water consumption, including the base rate of $19.50, the average residential water customer would pay approximately $34.50 per month. With the approval of the final assessment resolution today, the department anticipates commencing construction in February of 2025 and estimates an 11-month construction phase completing in January of 2026. Lump sum payments of the assessment by the property owners would be due August 1st of 2025, and any payments not received by that date would show up on the annual tax bill in November of 2025. That concludes my presentation.
Questions for staff? We have one request from the public to speak. Would you like to go before?
No, she can, yeah.
Sean Guerin? Mr. Guerin is not here.
Anymore.
Commissioner Campy?
I wanted to take a moment, first I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommendations, and I wanted to take a moment to, thank you, to compliment our staff. Before I compliment the residents, this had been a process for many years, actually, all the way back. We've had to change policies based on the neighborhood here, how we used to collect ballots was challenged. I think we've been at this for more than 12 years, right? And the residents have waited for a long time, and so the same faces, well, there's one new face, but really did a remarkable job of soothing the concerns of the residents, educating them, informing them on exactly what the process would be like, answering all of my questions. I would steer people that would contact me to you all, and you would handle it very professionally, as you always do. We've had several meetings. We've had community meetings at the library. And when people are unsure about how a process will go, sometimes can get a little agitated and a little aggressive. And you all were consummate professionals, and I wanted to say thank you so much for making, one, getting the project done, two, making my life easier. And to the residents, there was a handful, not even a handful, like a single handful in each neighborhood that really led the charge for the rest of their residents, taking some slings and arrows from people that were nervous about the process. But I think what we ended up with is a very fair process. It'll bring water, which is the start of a lot of terrific things. A lot of folks were in the process of figuring out, do I do a new reverse osmosis? Do I start with a new salt system? What am I doing here? Am I digging a new well? And so the timing is perfect. And so thanks to the residents that really in their individual neighborhoods led the charge like boots on the ground. And that's how we are where we are today. It seems like, hey, we're just voting on an agenda item, but there was so much behind the scenes from so many to make it possible.
Thank you.
So congratulations to all.
Commissioner Capps?
I'm curious about the history of this application and effort. Like, how long have the people been trying to get the city water to their neighborhood and that kind of thing? Like,
For this particular project, more than 10 years ago, I don't remember the specific dates, but we received a petition from the folks. And typically what happens is we receive a petition signed by a majority of the neighborhood. And if we receive that, then we'll do some preliminary efforts of designing the project preliminarily and putting together a cost estimate. Then we send out individual ballots to every property owner based upon our estimate, and we give a range of what the potential assessment will be. And we do that 3 times to make sure we reach out to everybody possible. The very first time it went around, it failed, and my recollection was we had like 90% of the people voted, and it failed by like 7 properties. So it was a number of years before it came back up again. We realized it was going to come forward again, so based upon that, and the residents starting to talk to us more often, we started the process also of applying for a state revolving fund loan to construct this project, which we were eventually successful in doing. But the costs had gone up a lot since then. So essentially, through a number of discussions, we reballoted the neighborhood, and that's the latest votes that we have here. So hope that gives you the background you're looking for.
oh, thank you.
That's the process we use for all of our accessible projects.
The interesting thing that happened in this particular project is after that original vote, we used to do the votes in-house and collect the ballots and kept here. Someone smartly, sort of cunningly, made a public records request for the ballots and then went and browbeat the neighbors that didn't vote the way that they wanted them to. And then the neighbors called up and said, how dare you show our votes? So we have since switched that process from being handled internally to having Supervisor of Election Vicki Davis handling it, because her rules and regulations on how she has to show votes is different. And now we have secured that system to be confidential, and it was because of this neighborhood that took place.
Mr. Donaldson?
Two other quick things to add to this is one of the things that happened, of course, the project was a little bit snake bit too in the fact that they had a design for construction to go an easy route from crossing one part of the canal into the other. And then the Water Management District or the Corps, I don't remember which one, said we couldn't do it that way, so the price went way up. And then one of the other things that the board, I think, was a good decision is because of this project was sort of remote, the cost of getting water to the front of the subdivision was also a large cost. And one of the policies that we direct came out of that is that if you're in the urban service boundary, to try to encourage our, to provide the utility services, that the utility and the county, we get the service up to the community and the assessments based upon distributing it throughout. So that was a big deal as well. And so I think that's really ultimately, the residents were a little frustrated on the ups and downs of the cost, but ultimately, I think it is a great project and it's well needed for this community.
Further comments? There's a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations.
On to public hearing number 2, public hearing to adopt notice of intent resolution required by section 197.3632 Florida statutes for special assessments.
And once again, Phil Keithley with the Utilities Department. I'm going to let Mr. David Duncan make the presentation.
Too far.
Good afternoon again. For the record, David Duncan, Senior Project Manager with the Utilities and Solid Waste Department. This is a public hearing to adopt a non-binding resolution declaring the board's intent to use the uniform method of collection for non-ad valorem assessments for a proposed series of special assessments that may be imposed within certain municipal service benefit units to be established for road paving, ancillary drainage, dredging services, stormwater services, and facilities, and water and/or wastewater projects. Section 197.3632 Florida statute requires that the county hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution of intent to use the uniform method of collection for any assessment program in the calendar year prior to such collection. The resolution, which does not obligate the county either to use the uniform method of collection or to impose any one special assessment, must be adopted by January 1st, 2025, and sent to the tax collector, the property appraiser, and the Department of Revenue by January 10th of 2025. Additionally, Section 197.3632 requires that the notice of the public hearing to adopt the resolution of intent be published for 4 consecutive weeks immediately preceding the date of the hearing. The notice of intent was properly advertised, and the affidavit of publication of the notice of intent will be part of the resolution. The notice of intent allows the county to meet its statutory notice requirements necessary to use the uniform collection method. The resolution to be adopted today is a non-binding, and the board may reduce the geographic area covered by any future assessment or decide not to impose any special assessment at a later date. By adopting the resolution, the board is simply preserving the right to use the uniform collection method beginning in November 2025 for projects implemented prior to such date. Staff's recommendation is for the board to accept the public comment and adopt the resolution of intent to use the uniform collection of method for non-ad valorem assessments. That concludes my presentation.
Would anyone from the public like to address us on PH2? Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, so could you break this down in 2 sentences, what this means to the public? I know what you said, reserving the right for us.
Maybe I can
Assess.
try to do that. So so the last item you just heard was, went through a public hearing process, a couple of hearings before you finally adopt it, to create a municipal services benefit unit, an MMSBU. And in order for the board to use that method, you have had to have advertised the potential use of it the year before. So, and you'll see some of these listed projects, and while Utilities is presenting it, it actually spans multiple departments. And your most common type of municipal service benefit unit project would be, I live on a dirt road, and I want my road paved, and we're willing to pay for it. And the government's method of doing that would be to use the MSBU process. That's one form of it. Utilities is obviously providing the property's share for a water or sewer project. And as if you listen, we've also used it, probably one of the few counties here and there, for a dredging project. So it services projects that would have to have a specific benefit to the property. So it is going to do some sort of municipal project that benefits the property: water, sewer, paving roads, stormwater, drainage, those types of things could also fall into it. So this agenda item in its simplest form is just simply the list of projects that the board has either considered in their CIP or that staff has had some information from the community, or a project that we may be considering next year. So if it's not on the list, it simply means that you could still pursue a project in a neighborhood, but you couldn't use the MSB methodology next year. You would have to wait another year. So this just simply preserves the right. It doesn't mean we're going to do the project, because any project on this list will still go through a rather exhaustive process of having to demonstrate the cost of it, public hearings and meetings that we have through our practice of meeting with neighborhoods before you would see it come back to you. But that's what this agenda item is. In its simplest form, is we have an advertisement in the newspaper or whatever the legislature allows us to do now, which I guess is, that would announce all these projects, and they have to have a specific boundary. So some projects might be, like the Evergreen would be just the community boundary. Some of them might be just the listing of a street. And in some cases, it might list a much larger geographic area. When you go to do the project can be smaller than you originally advertised, but it could be no bigger. So that's, it was probably a little bit of a long-winded piece, but that is. So this is really a collection of an aggregate of a number of projects that could be done using the non-ad valorem assessment methodology, which we use our tax collector to put on your tax bill.
Okay, so Martin County would be, can you hear me? I don't know if you can.
Yes.
hear me. Martin County would be paying for the dirt road, let's say. She says no.
It could be 100% of just the property owners. So this is again, it's a method to assess the benefited property. So if it went through the process, for instance, and I'll go back to the last one as an example, it could have been that the property owners paid 100%, and the county only provided staffing services to bring it to you, and we bid it out and that kind of thing. But there isn't, but depending upon the board's policy and the practice, and there's also some legal tenets about when we need to provide a portionate share. And so it could be 100% property owner or some portion thereof.
That's decided on each project.
It's decided on each project.
Does this come also from CIP funds?
The funding could come from, yes, absolutely. These would be CIP projects. In fact, all of them ultimately would be in your CIP. Some of them may be not in the CIP right now and would only become added to the CIP if they get developed within the next year to be something real.
Okay.
Commissioner Capps?
Yeah, my question has to do with definitions. MSTU versus MSBU. And as I understand the MSBU, to me, what that means is everybody on the street pays the same amount of money.
The property pays in proportionate to its benefit. So I'll try to keep it simple. If it's like a road project and I have 1,000 feet of road frontage and my neighbor only has 100, it may be a per foot cost, or, so it would be in proportion to so a BU is in proportion to the benefit to the property. Another example would be drainage. If we were doing drainage improvements and I had 5 acres and my neighbor only had 1 acre, the 5 acre generates more drainage runoff, so they would pay in proportion to that metric. And we have some attorneys and specialists that help us ensure that when we do these assessments, that the method of determining proportionate share is done legally and is based upon facts. A TU is simply a collection of funds that is used for a municipal service that would be similar to what like a city might do. We could be for fire rescue, for instance, or we have a stormwater, where we're providing municipal services, and that geographic boundary is established within an ordinance, and that's based upon the property value of so you set a millage every year on that one. And that's not in proportion to the benefit to the property owner. It's just it's similar to an ad valorem, it's tax that you would, but it's a municipal tax. And it falls under its own 10 mil cap, if you will. The legislature allows counties to use MSTUs to provide services similar to what a city might need to. So they recognize that counties also have to provide some services similar to a city, and that's the municipal services taxing unit.
So we're deciding on the uniform method of collection, the MSBU.
Yes.
Would there be any other alternatives? Not that I really think that would be a good thing. I'm just curious. Like, is there another option? Yes.
I'm sorry, I was trying to, if it's okay, what this statute allows us is to use the tax roll as a way, the tax bill, to send the bill, and then they will pay that assessment. It's possible to send people bills, but that's obviously cost prohibitive most of the time. Plus, then you have to go forward and have to do collections, and the legal department suing our citizens, which we certainly do not want to do. And so this is a uniform method. It's been in place for years and years and years, but I can tell you back in the olden days, it was, I think in Martin County, there was a period of time when we first formed our utility service, we were sending out bills, and I can say that was not an effective way of doing business. So this provides a uniform method that provides, in my opinion, a lot of notice and to our taxpayers so they know what to do. And it, again, doesn't obligate you to any particular project. It just allows you to avail yourself and notify the property appraiser and the tax collector, who are integral to making this work. The utilities department, for example, when they have a project, they're working with the property appraiser and the tax collector and our special assessment council to make sure that everything is done. And again, then we don't have collection costs. If people don't pay these, then it's related to the tax bill. Hence the notice, again, to let people know it's coming.
But I think a quick answer is there's usually always other alternatives.
Yes.
And so, and I'll leave you with these two examples. So I think some communities have used the MSTU, like in a private community that wanted streetlights. And that sometimes the counties, we haven't used it so much here, would establish a single MSTU for some HOA. To have FP&L put in lights, and we collect the bill for them, right? So under an MSTU. So that's one method. The other might be, instead of using a stormwater special assessment or an MSBU, you might establish a stormwater utility. So there's always different methods of doing things, but these are two ones that we used. MSTUs and MSBUs are a common practice, especially when it's a smaller project that you want those specific property owners to pay for the benefit they're receiving.
Similar. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. She just turned me off. But similar to what Hutchinson Island had. They had an MSTU, and that was to put lighting that was lower to the ground so it wouldn't shine, so the tortoises would not walk across A1A and they wouldn't get misguided. And also the plantings, they had that also specifically.
Yeah, so that's, and that, so the Hutchinson Island MSU is actually a broader, if you look at it, it was to provide multiple types of services, of which a portion of those funds were used for the beach renourishment, and a portion of the funds were used for some matching funds for DOT projects, and there was a lighting project at one time as well. So that enabling language of that MSTU is in the Hutchinson Island Municipal Services Tax Unit. It has a specific ordinance that limits how you all can spend the money. And so it can be fairly broad or can be very narrow. So there are some limitations on what the Hutchinson Island MSTU can be used for, and it's written in that ordinance, and I could provide it to you. I just don't remember off the top of my head there are limitations, though.
Is there a motion to approve staff's recommendation?
I'll make the motion to approve staff's recommendation.
A second?
There's a motion by Commissioner Heatherington, seconded by Commissioner Vargas. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you,
Before we go on to Mango Terrace, Ms. Gordon, would you like to do the B and C one? Do you have all those in? Okay. So while, who's coming forward? We're going to take Mango Terrace, which is public hearing quasi judicial one, and fill out your voting sheets in the meantime.
Who is she missing? Mason Waters, big day for Waters.
Big box, huh? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Commissioner,
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a quasi judicial proceeding. This is a public hearing to consider a request for a right-of-way width variance for Northeast Mango Terrace. Commissioner Vargas, any ex parte disclosures?
It's already been filed.
Okay.
If I have any, they've been in file, they have
Okay.
been filed.
If I have any, they've been filed? You have them. They've been filed.
I didn't have any, other than emails that have been put through, and that's been filed.
I
I haven't
do,
had any conversations, sorry.
I do, and they've been filed.
Okay. Would anyone who's going to be providing testimony, please stand up, raise your right hand, and be sworn in?
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
And have all the materials that need to go to the clerk been passed on to the clerk?
Yes, it's just the agenda item for this one, so yes.
Okay. Are there any interveners?
There are no interveners in this
Okay.
type of hearing.
Then proceed, staff.
This is a request by Frank and Michelle Casella to adopt a resolution granting a variance for the right-of-way width for Northeast Mango Terrace. In addition, the board is requested to accept Northeast Mango Terrace into the county's road inventory as publicly owned and maintained upon the issuance of the road opening permit and the county engineer's acceptance of the construction of the roadway. I apologize. My name is Michael Grzelk. I'm the county engineer for the record. The background on this property, on April 19th, 1949, the plat of Mango Lane was recorded in Plat Book 2, page 66 of the Public Records of Martin County, Florida, and included a dedication of the platted rights-of-way to the public. On February 7th, 1952, the amended plat of Mango Lane was recorded in Plat Book 2, page 76 of the Public Records of Martin County, Florida, and included a dedication of the platted rights-of-way to the public. A portion of the right-of-way adjacent to lots 7, 8, 22, and 23 was abandoned on September 5th, 1967. The remainder of the right-of-way adjacent to lots 9 through 13, 17A, and 17 through 21 were not constructed and therefore were not included in the county's road inventory when it was adopted in 1972. For roads that were not constructed in rights-of-way that were platted prior to 1972, It has been the county's procedure to require the roads to be constructed in accordance with the county's current standards prior to accepting the roads into the county's road inventory. Frank and Michelle Casella would like to open the road and sell the lots to individuals that wish to construct homes on the lots of record. Section 4.843K of the Martin County Land Development Regulation provides, in order for a building permit to be issued for the construction of any structure, the lot must directly front an open road. Accordingly, Frank and Michelle Casella will be submitting a road opening permit application to open portions of the platted road rights-of-way and construct the road to county standards. Section 4.843B2 of the Martin County Land Development Regulations provides, variances may be granted by the Board of County Commissioners for rights-of-way within plats that were recorded prior to 1972, where the previously acquired right-of-way is less than the required minimum right-of-way. Frank and Michelle Casella are requesting the Board of County Commissioners grant a variance for the right-of-way width for Northeast Mango Terrace. The right-of-way width for the first approximately 170 feet of Northeast Mango Terrace, immediately east of Northeast Skyline Drive, will be 30 feet in width instead of the required 50-foot for curb and gutter roads. And Frank and Michelle Casella will dedicate the additional required 10 feet of right-of-way from each of the existing lots of record 9, 10, 11, 12, 18, 19, 20, and 21 with the road opening permit application for construction of a county standard curb and gutter road. If authorized, the following road characteristics will be added into the county's road inventory upon issuance of a road opening permit and completion of construction and acceptance by the county engineer. The name of the road is Northeast Mango Terrace. The length will be 570 feet. The limits are east of Northeast Skyline Drive. The ownership will be Martin County. The maintaining entity will be Martin County. The functional classification will be local residential. Right-of-way width will be 30 feet per portion of it and 50 feet for the remainder. Pavement width and type will be 20 feet of asphalt. Sidewalk width will be 6 feet on one side of the road. Method of stormwater treatment will be dry retention, and the posted speed limit will be 25 miles an hour. The staff recommendation is to move that the board receive and file the agenda item and all attachments, including the staff report as Exhibit 1. Move that the board adopt a resolution granting a variance for the right-of-way width for Northeast Mango Terrace and accept Northeast Mango Terrace into the county's road inventory as publicly owned and publicly maintained upon the issuance of the road opening permit and the county engineer's acceptance of the construction of the roadway. An alternative recommendation is move that the Board of County Commissioner direct staff to review the road opening permit application and prior to the issuance of road opening permit to return to the board for final action to accept the road into the county's road inventory. Or number 2 would be provide staff direction. And that is the end of staff's presentation.
Questions for staff? Really?
I know him.
I do.
What a greeting. Thank you, Tyson Waters, on behalf of the applicant, Frank and Michelle Casella. And I think the staff did a great job with their overview, their presentation, and we certainly agree with staff's recommendation and would ask that you do the same. As staff mentioned, we're in a bit of a constraint here with this old platted right-of-way. The plat was done in 1949, amended a few years later, but still provided for that 30-foot right-of-way. Then we get into a little bit twist and nuances. So in 1967, the county abandoned the eastern portion of Southeast Mango Terrace to kind of eliminate any possible access from that side of the road. So fast forward to today, and that's why we're here to ask for the minimum right-of-way variance from 50 feet for 30 feet, only for that first little chunk of the land, just I guess it's south of lot 17 and 17A. Once we get into the property that the Casellas own, it'll open up to the 50-foot that is typically required. We applied for this application about a year ago, and normally I think this is processed pretty quickly and approved by the board. We were first to be in front of this board in March of this year. We realized at that point there were some questions and concerns, so the application was pulled from the agenda so that we could resubmit with a little bit more information and narrative as to what we're asking for and the history of the project. Fast forward again to September of this year, we were once again scheduled to be back in front of this board, but again, we heard some questions and comments and concerns about, is it possible to have an alternative access from Candace Avenue instead of Skyline Drive. So we went to our neighbors to the east and asked them for an easement to basically recreate the old platted portion that's over their lots and then turn south to connect to Candace Avenue and then use that as our point of ingress and egress. After discussions with them, we were told no, that they weren't going to grant us an easement. So with that answer, we're out of options to do anything with this property other than come in front of this board and ask for this request. Another point that's been discussed is this question of legal access, where there's no question that we have legal access. Again, we've got a platted right-of-way that's been in place for 75 years. The question becomes the governmental regulations, will they prevent us and prohibit us from actually developing our lands? Again, we've got 8 platted lots that have been in place for 75 years. We're at our last point asking the governmental body to approve this variance so that we can move forward with this request. A no here means these lots are not going to be developable. And, and the ramifications come from that. Another question or another issue is the uniqueness of these requests. We do see these requests, especially for these old platted developments, where applicants and property owners come before you to ask for a reduction in the minimum right-of-way. Again, it's typically down to 30 feet because for these old plats, that was the typical right-of-way that was granted. We're not the only ones along Skyline that have or would have this 30-foot right-of-way. You know overhead?
I do not.
Don does.
So this is Skyline Drive as it exists today. You can see our properties right here in yellow. And then up further down, there's 3 streets that already have either a 30-foot right-of-way or even less than that. There's one that only has a 20-foot right-of-way, and it's actually just an easement. So out of the 10 streets that come off this section of Skyline Drive, 3 of the streets have similar requests or similar conditions that we're asking for today. So we're not going to be preferential treatment, we're not going to be the first, and we're not going to be the only one that looks like this. And you'll also note, and it's kind of hard to see, but we've got a number of hundreds of feet between the other access points on Skyline Drive. So it's not like we're asking to add another spur off Skyline Drive right next to another spur of it, if you will. So we understand there's complaints and concerns from the neighbors, but again, we're here because we're stuck in a situation that based on governmental regulations have prohibited us from developing and building on single-family platted lots that are 75 years old. It's a common request. It's a request you get often. And again, we'd ask that you listen to your staff and listen to this presentation and grant us the variance requested. And with that, we're here for any questions that you may have.
Questions? I have a couple questions for staff. Okay, so the policy is for roads that were not constructed in rights-of-way that were platted prior to 1972, it's been the county's procedure to require the roads to be constructed in accordance with the county standards prior to accepting the roads into the county's road inventory. That's not what's being proposed here at all. Why? Have any permits been applied for? Have any plans been applied for?
No.
Then why is the recommendation to accept into our inventory, contrary to our policy, a road that's not constructed?
It was put in there, and you could easily take it out so that I did not have to bring it back in front of the board for acceptance at a later date. It's currently our policy that when we do road opening permits, we issue the permits, they build the roads, and then when they're all said and done, we come back in front of this board twice a year and present and on a consent agenda for the board to accept these roads, these new roads into the county's inventory. But because this has a variance part to it, so we figured we'd just get it all taken care of once in front of the board, was to grant the variance, and then once the road is permitted and constructed and accepted by the county, then it would be automatically processed into the road opening inventory.
That seems contrary to reason, but.
the board could simply allow the variance. It would go through the permit process and then get constructed, and then added to the inventory would be a second process before the board, more perfunctory, if you will, as long as it met the criteria. Then that usually includes, because this was dedicated to the public, the maintenance responsibility. So there's really three pieces of this. One is the variance. The second piece is the actual permit to construct it, which is done at a staff level. And then the third piece is adding it to the inventory. And it's that adding to the inventory that allows them to get a single-family building permit on the lots of record.
Well, it seems, I would feel more comfortable, I think, if the road was built, and rather than accepting it into the inventory, not knowing whether it's going to be standard or substandard or qualify to be put into the county's inventory. I don't know that I want to take that chance. And also, I read that the assessed value of the property is 0 and therefore no taxes have been assessed. Is that true?
I do not know that answer.
Yeah, I think that may be correct. Again, right now, it has legal access, but it's unbuildable until we get this road issue. But again, that's just from tax purposes and the valuation, but it's not the actual cost of the property or the value of the property.
The whole property.
For the whole property?
One of those.
Yeah.
You do?
I want a free.
No taxes?
No tax bill property.
Mr. Donaldson is his old light hope.
It's an old lady, please.
Thank God. Commissioner Vargas.
Okay, I drove in front of the property. I went down Skyline, I went north, I went south, I went north, I went south, I went on Candace, north and south. And I guess the best way to describe it is it's a phantom road. It's there, but it's not there right now. I know that you've been working, the applicants, since 2023, I think, about, presenting this and getting this through. So this is a right-of-way. I looked back at the records. I think it goes platted to 1952, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that a lot of the concerns for the residents are the steep drop from the road. Now, that could be graded, possibly, so it's not so precarious, a drop. They talked about flooding also, because I've received, it's in my district, I received a lot of communication on this. The flooding onto the property and flowing down into the estuary, speeding along the major street there. I know some stop signs will be put up. My understanding is that a road of this length and width is about $40,000, thereabouts, and it's good for about 25 years. Let me know if I'm on the right path here, on the right road, shall I say. And then Martin County would take it over because it'd be in the inventory. Now, the thing is that the drop down, the drainage, the erosion, wildlife survey, several people did mention that there are active tortoise burrows there on the property, hawks and, other types of ecological nature there. I know that 0 taxes are being paid, 0 valuation. Is there a site plan at all?
There's not, because, right now, there are 8 platted lots.
Yes.
So that's what we're here today, relying on. Whether or not there'll be a site plan or something else, or all of the 8 lots will be developed, only a few of them, what that is, I don't know. But right now, we're here today because step 1 for us is to get this minimum right-of-way variance. And then step 2, we'll be working with your engineering department, and that's going to address a lot of those questions, because we do have to build the road to county standards, just like any other road. The difference is, instead of 50 feet, we do it on 30 feet. So we'll have to address the stormwater, we'll have to address erosion, we'll have to address any safety issues. All of that's going to be part of our permitting process to construct the road and then ultimately open it. But for us, this is step 1, to make sure that we can proceed and fully evaluate those next steps. steps.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. You know, if you have the road constructed, all's well, it meets code, and it's reviewed by the staff, the department that handles that. And then let's say you have these problems, the flooding and the estuaries affected, and there's the wildlife, then a road would have been built by this applicant for what reason? I think that's what I'm confused about.
All of those concerns are addressed, and the staff requires them that they address all those issues at time of permitting. So they have to provide documentation that they are not adversely affecting the estuary or the runoff or any of that stuff is all done during staff review of the actual permit.
Right.
but-
Now, that's sandy soil, so erosion is a big issue there.
Commissioner, if I could just add one piece to that. So for projects that were platted prior to 72, prior to our codes and ordinances, the plat is the site plan. That's it. That's all you have, is you have a plat, and that's all there is. Our regulations only affect the road. So if you have frontage on a road, then it's all by building permit. So the building permit, I mean, staff does look at the building permit in terms of what, you can do, but in terms of the drainage, a lot of record is to do minimal harm to your neighbor. So we don't have the same stormwater requirements on a lot of record that you do for a new subdivision. We do have those standards for the road that's opening, so they have to provide water quality and things for the road and provide some stormwater so it doesn't affect their neighbors to the degree practicable. So that's a nuance of these old platted, whether it was platted in 1920 or 1965, they're the same in the fact that most of these plats have very little information on what they plan to do with stormwater or anything like that. So it is limited on what we can do, and it's all related really squarely on the road permit. So the road, we can make them detain the water from the road and try to carry water to a final destination, but the lot itself would just simply be a building permit.
Okay, understood. Now, is there encroachment from the property on the south side of Mango onto this proposed roadway? There's a shed, there's a portion of a driveway. Does anybody know?
That is our belief based on the aerial photographs we have, but we have not received any actual surveys of the right-of-way as of yet.
Okay.
The surveys will be required, and all that will be done during the permitting process.
Okay, where I'm going with this, would that widen the road then if they had to remove whatever was
It wouldn't,
encroaching?
because anything so we're only talking about within this platted right-of-way. Any encroachments, I mean, each of these lots where the 30-foot right-of-way would go between, they've got their own setbacks that are, I believe they're actually set in the plat. And so if they're not complying with those setbacks, that's separate and apart from, what's allowed to happen within this right-of-way.
Okay, I understand that. Now, what about the impacts to traffic on Skyline? Has this been addressed?
I mean,
During the permitting process, we don't address that because these are lots of record. Those lots have historic access to Skyline Drive. So their traffic generation is basically has been accounted for when the plats were done.
Okay, I understand about the abandonment of the other right-of-way towards Candace Avenue. I understood it was like the Wild West back then. I mean, this road would go all the way over the railroad tracks, all the way over Pineapple, down Mango to Indian River, and that's just the way it was. Is
right,
that correct?
and that eastern half of Mango is constructed, and it's constructed at 30 feet, consistent with
Yes,
plat.
yes, it is. 2 cars can carefully, I tried that. I did an experiment with another driver, and I was fine. But anyway, there are 8 lots that are platted. My understanding is that one of the lots has to be sacrificial because that is going to be a turnaround, like a cul-de-sac for garbage trucks, for emergency vehicles, for those that are in the neighborhood to be able to egress from the property. Is this correct?
That I don't know. I think that would come, again, as part of the road opening permit. because we will dedicate additional right-of-way, so you go 30 feet, then you'll open up to 50 feet as required by code. What other safety and other features that we'll have to add, again, that'll be part of whatever road opening permit process that we'll have to do.
I understand, I'm speaking more for the owners
Oh, okay.
of the property, or, you need to be aware of that.
The code is,
Wrong one.
the code is clear on that they would need to be required for turnaround and capable for both fire trucks and,
Or garbage trucks, and these are about 100 by 117 on 2.5 acres. Now, the other thing is, there's a maintenance bonds required for the first year after the road is constructed, is that correct? And if all not as well, you have to correct that. Septic tanks are in the area, which is most of Jensen Beach, is that correct also? Okay, and the setback variance is required. Have you sent courtesy notices? Is that required or not required to the adjoining community?
So, Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney. So we did send notice to some of the adjoining property owners, and we put an ad in the Stuart News, I believe, but that was all a courtesy. There's no requirement for notice of this hearing. We did it as a courtesy and for transparency, so the neighbors knew that this hearing was taking place, but it was not required.
All right. And it's also my understanding that the north and east, to the north and to the east of the subject lots is a proposed, at one time, maybe not development called Pitchford Landings LLC, has quite a few LLCs attached to it, but there's no application yet, and that's all that conservatory area that you might see, so.
you're correct, there's been no application submitted on any of that property.
Right, we do have an application for Pitchford, which is up a little further. There's a PUD, but not the property adjoining the property in question.
Right, it's to the north and the east of it, because I investigated all of this, so no questions right now. Thank you.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I'll be brief. I met with staff, I met with the applicant's representative, and I'm not in favor of the variance at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Campy, I'm just curious. So you said that you were aware of property that has no assessed value. Does that mean that it's, that the property appraiser considers it unbuildable?
You misunderstood. I'm not aware. I said I wish I had one. Anybody else?
He has one.
Okay.
I tend to agree with Commissioner Heatherington. I don't think this is ready to go. I would certainly much prefer that they just do the conventional, apply for a permit, build the road, and then we decide whether or not to accept it into our inventory. I
So-
think that's the way that I think it's normally done.
It's true, Commissioner Hurd, that is normally done. So this is two parts. The first part is from the applicant, which is asking for the variance for the 30-foot road. The second part was a request from the county engineer to accept it at a later date into the inventory. So if anything, the applicant's request is for the variance, and if the variance is not granted, then they will not be able to build the lot at all. So they can't apply for the road opening permit without a variance. So the whole thing with opening the road and accepting into the inventory was a request from the county engineer. So the applicant's request is just for that variance.
Yeah, it's so what's the recommendation is two-part. Our part is, so we can get started, the right-of-way minimum width variance. That's part one, that's end of the story, and that allows us to move to the next part, to apply for the road opening permit, to construct it to county standards, to address all of those issues that come with it. Part two, if we do all that, and the county looks at it and goes, yes, you have constructed this to county standards, we're okay. Part two is accepting it into the open road inventory. It'd be nice to do it today, just so it's done. We're happy with just the variance today. That's our only request. If the board feels more comfortable making sure that it's done correctly and all that, and then coming back at a later date, that's fine. Our request and our purpose is to get that road opening variance, so minimum width variance, so that we can go to the next step. Because if we don't get that, we cannot go to the next step. We're done here today.
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes, I think you had mentioned that there were, I'm talking to you.
Sorry.
But I can talk to you from the seat, that's fine too. You'd mentioned that there were two other roads that were about the same width, is that correct? According to the map that you put up a few moments ago?
So there's three roads. So this is, and again, the east portion of Mango Terrace is also, but I'm only focusing right off Skyline Drive. So there's about 10 points of entry onto Skyline. Three of those, which are northeast Sunset Drive, so that's that long drive right here, is a 30-foot right-of-way. And then a portion of Highline Drive, which is this red right here, is also a 30-foot right-of-way. Again, platted 30-foot right-of-way. And then northeast Myers Terrace is this portion right here, and that's actually a 20-foot easement. So it's an easement over everyone's lot to allow for the road to be constructed. But again, out of the 10 roads that spur off this portion of Skyline, 3 of them have a 30-foot right-of-way or less. So it's not, granting this variance is not going to be an anomaly along Skyline Drive. It's just what you end up with when you have these very old platted lots. You just have these natural constraints, and that's what we're faced with today. And that's why the county has something in their regulations to allow a variance for platted lots that existed prior to 1972 when you changed to the 50-foot right-of-way minimum.
Right. And Sunset, Highline, and Myers, when were they constructed? Do you happen to have that information?
If I can read it.
Okay.
So the plat of Skyline Park, which is this one and that one, was 1962, I believe. It's Plat Book 2, page 77. And then Myers Minor Plat is 1973.
This is quite similar to the very narrow right-of-ways that are in Coconut Grove. If any of you are familiar with it in Dade County, very, very familiar with all of that. And they would go ahead and grant the variances to, be able to allow entrance to proposed neighborhoods. And of course, everything else would comply because they would open up. So it's the same type of project as I see here.
We still, yes, that's a very good point. We still have to comply with everything else.
Absolutely.
This just allows our right-of-way to be 30 feet instead of 50 feet. Everything else has to be according to county regulations as we construct the road.
And the other 70% of the roads are 50 feet?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Jensen Beach is a different flavor. Partial to it, of course. It's my district.
So we need public comment. If you want to go.
Is there any public comment? Back to the board for a decision.
Maybe I can make a comment, if you don't mind. Good afternoon. My name is Frank Casella, and my wife Michelle and I own that property. We've owned it for the last 3 years. If we had 50 feet, we would build the road at 50 feet. Unfortunately, this is the original plat, and it's a little piece of history. It shows how things were done way back when. And this road...
Would you please pull over the microphone so we can get you on record?
Sure.
Thanks.
All right. So the access, the only access that's available is to Skyline. And that small piece from Skyline to the first lot, we have no more room to flex. We have only 30 feet, and that's what was platted back then. As soon as we get to the first lot, we will comply with the 50 feet. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. I kind of felt like it was, but we would build 50. It's just not there. And so I hope that answers any questions. The variance is the very beginning. We can't do anything without a road variance. It would just stalemate the project. But I'm happy to answer any so I'm not a developer, so I cannot address drainage. But of course, we would deal with drainage as required. If lots had to be sacrificed for retention, we would. And you know that one of the lots is going to be sacrificed to allow for a cul-de-sac. So those things are not optional. Those are going to go with the site plan. We're just not there yet because without a variance, we have nowhere to go. So I hope that helped a little bit, maybe not confuse things even more.
It says in the application that you are going to dedicate an additional 10 feet of right-of-way from each of the existing lots of record, 9, 10, 11, 12, 18, 19, 20, 21. Why not dedicate 20?
10 on each side, it would be 20. So the road goes right through the development. It's 30. We pick up 10 on the right and 10 on the left, so it would be 50.
Yeah, so you would meet the
We would.
50
Yes.
requirement on the inside of the little street. So I don't want to say
If our neighbors
subdivision,
donated
but
10 on each side from Skyline, we would do 50
there's
all
an
the way.
option. Yeah, good luck with that.
So again, I hope that helps. And we appreciate your consideration and approval. Thanks.
Commissioner Vargas?
The question? Question?
Your light was on. Did
Oh,
you have-
I'm sorry, you didn't turn off
comment?
my light. No, not at this moment. I think I've made quite a few comments.
Yeah, take some action.
Commissioner Capps?
Well, I'm kind of moved by what the LDRs say and how this unique variance provision was put into the LDRs for seemingly this very type scenario, which says, we'll read it again. The LDR provides that a variance may be granted by the Board of County Commissioners for rights-of-way within plats that were recorded prior to 1972 where the previously acquired right-of-way is less than the required minimum right-of-way. So I think the codes anticipated this problem. And I'm also moved by the fact that there are other older streets very close by that have the same 30-foot right-of-way. And also, I think failure to grant the variance would deprive the applicant of the ability to develop the lots, which is a very severe consequence. So for those reasons, I would move staff's approval.
Commissioner Campy?
Thank you. I'd like to speak to the owner of the property just for a couple of questions, sir. Mr. Waters said that you would try to negotiate with the folks at the bottom of the hill, if you will, on Candace.
We did through Terry McCarthy. Hard no. Absolutely no.
Absolutely, positively no?
With zero wiggle room.
See, for me, it's not so much granting the variance. We've done that quite a bit. I get the 30 and the 50. It's not your fault.
No.
But from my perspective, it also opens up a whole brand-new cul-de-sac of houses that'll come in between those two houses that historically have never had. The map that you showed, it showed 8 lots. Do you have the little red outline? Do you own the others as well?
We own just the 8.
Just the 8. Who owns below you, and then what's the story with that?
Manhattan LLC owns that to the east and all the property to the north.
Because, we're also opening up a whole opportunity here now. But to your point, Commissioner Capps' point, I see that we would somehow, see, the 30, from 30 to 50, I've seen us do that before. To me, it's that we're opening up a whole new situation, but it is your property. There were some people that spoke here this morning about their concerns, existing neighbors. I think to Commissioner Hurd's point, I get what Mr. Grzelka was trying to do about separating it, but if there was no concern from existing neighbors, it was not a big deal putting them two together and just trying to do that makes sense. But now that there is concern, I think that what we should do is separate them out the way that was one of the options. And I would be in favor of granting you your variance from 30 to 50. I think especially what Mr. Waters showed, that it's not like that would be the only situation like that in the entire neighborhood. There's plenty other examples of that. I'm just trying in my mind to think about future consequences of our actions to the existing neighbors, but you do own, those are legitimate plotted, buildable lots that the folks that bought along Skyline, whether it was yesterday or 50 years ago, should have understood that there were buildable lots behind them. Second, Commissioner, which I would tell you, based on your presentation and your, what's your name again? Waters. I was a no coming in on this, and you've changed my mind. So I will second Commissioner Kapp's motion.
Thank you.
Except that the last variance was granted in over 50 years ago.
I wasn't around then, but I can imagine.
No, there's been variances granted out in Palm City Farms.
No, I'm talking about this neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, one was granted in 62, and the next one was granted in 72 or 75.
I remember the 75.
Yeah.
There was, as I said, Jensen Beach is unique.
It is.
And so it's not an everyday thing. We don't take this lightly. But think about this. Those neighbors have enjoyed a wide open view for all those years,
Not theirs.
and then you come along. So I definitely would approve of this variance.
Is there a motion to approve?
Like,
Oh, you made it.
Yep,
Are you
we did.
seconding?
Commissioner Campy, but I definitely would approve.
Progress.
Yep.
There's a motion by Commissioner Kapp, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed?
Are you
That-
opposing?
Yeah. That motion passes
Trick.
3-2 with
Who's
Commissioners.
the other two? Who's the other one?
Heatherington. With Heatherington and her dissenting.
I said I wasn't in
You did
favor
say
of the
that.
variance.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time today.
Let them eat cake.
You got one out
From the center chair.
of two.
They can-
Are we ready for B and C1?
Oh, no, that was a tough one.
I saved those people. I feel like, you know,
Benevolent. He is benevolent.
This is Community Redevelopment Agency Board Member appointments. Oh, and Chair and Vice Chair designations, too.
I haven't received Commissioner Kapp's and Vargas's
what's
forms.
happening, new kids?
Okay, I do want to make a statement here. This is our second meeting. So we're not going to be rush on this, on any of the appointments whatsoever. I did have a discussion with a staff member, and this is not going to affect the operations of the board at all. If we can put this off until January. And at that point, I would have had time to meet and interview the proposed. I think this is extremely important. Community Development, Redevelopment Agency board members, they have to align with what my beliefs are and what is best for my district. So that's my statement, and I'm going to stick by it.
Is there any urgency, Ms. Gordon? Can we postpone this? Can we continue this until?
As far as I know, the next community redevelopment meeting is January 27. So if you do it on the 14th, that's fine.
Yes, oh,
Legal, are we okay with that?
you're abandoned.
Can we continue the appointment of the CRA members until January so that Commissioner Vargas can better prepare to vote?
But are you, this seems to say also appointing the chair and vice chair as well?
So each,
Yeah, you're on.
how do I do that?
You're on.
Every year at this time, hi, Susan Corres, Office of Community Development. Every year at this same time, we look at any CRA members that perhaps their terms are expiring, which is what's happening this year, or any other changes like the at-large position, which is also happening this year. And following the procedure that is set up via ordinance, people apply for those positions. And then the board approves the appointment of those folks. So it isn't that there'll be different folks next month. They'll be probably the same. And the applicants generally, the incumbents generally do reapply. And then our at-large position is a position that's every 2 years. And that, we like that to rotate between CRAs so that different CRAs get representation that way.
Understood. Commissioner Vargas would just like the ability to have some more time to evaluate the.
Yes, there's no legal reason why you couldn't wait. And it won't
Evaluate the
impede the
applicant.
CRA.
It won't have any, there's no problem with our next meeting.
There's no
because it's
adverse
after the
effect.
14th.
Right, absolutely. I haven't even met with the CRA here in the building, so, hi.
Hi.
You're scheduled, but I haven't met with you yet. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll continue the appointments to the CRA, and including the designation of chair and vice chair until January
14.
14th.
Okay.
You need a motion for that?
To continue it?
Yeah.
I'll move that we continue the
January 14th.
Second.
1 to January 14th.
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Heatherington, seconded by Commissioner Capps. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Saving
Passes unanimously. All right, so next we go to Department 1.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Stephanie Murley, Director of the Office of Management and Budget, here to present to you 7 items on OMB today. The first item is a permission to apply for the 2025 Transportation Alternatives Set-Aside Program for the Fisherman Cove Sidewalk Project. This is for an application for a 6-foot sidewalk to connect the inner streets of Fisherman's Cove. It'll serve as a connection to the existing sidewalk on South Canner Highway to provide safe ADA-compliant access for pedestrians and other non-drivers. We are requesting a grant amount of $1.3 million, and a $200,000 match is required to be funded with the FY29 CIP project budget in roads. The second item is a permission to apply for the FY25 Florida Safe Routes to School Infrastructure Grant through the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, for the Northeast South Street Sidewalk Project. This is for a proposed new 6-foot sidewalk on Northeast South Street that will connect Northeast Savannah Road to the entrance of Jensen Beach Elementary School to enable and encourage children, including those with disabilities, to walk and bicycle to school safely. The requested grant award is for $1,839,972, and there is no cash match required. Item number 3 is a permission to accept the State of Florida FDEP grant for Cypress Creek Floodplain Restoration Project. Our Environmental Services Division is requesting the acceptance of $750,000 to construct a weir-type water control structure to rehydrate the floodplain of Cypress Creek. There is no cash match required, and this is a project that is contained within the Ecosystem Capital Improvement Plan. Item number 4 is a permission to accept the Public Transportation Grant Agreement for FY25 for the Public Transit Block Grant Program. We are requesting the acceptance of $392,393 to provide operating assistance for the Martin County MARTY in the urbanized area, as well as the ADA complementary services. A match of the same amount is required and is already budgeted within the FY25 transit operating budget. Item number 5 is from the Supervisor of Elections Office. It's a permission to accept the Florida Department of Help American Vote Act Election Security Enhancement Grant. This is a grant award in the amount of $14,925 for the funding of election security enhancement, and there's no cash match required. Item number 6 is a permission to accept the Radiological Emergency Preparedness, or the REP agreement. Our Fire Rescue Department is requesting this recurrent grant to fund our Nuclear Planning Division and our Emergency Management Division in the amount of $597 $1,000 for the salaries, planning, equipment, and training to enhance the radiological emergency management program's ability to respond and recover from any radiological emergency. This is a grant we've gotten for a couple decades, and there is no cash match required. And our last item was a request from the board to discuss the possibility of a full-time employee or FTE position for the Human Services Department for the Veteran Services Division. Michelle Miller's here if you would like to speak, but this is due to an increase in services that are needed for our veterans here. So we're requesting the addition of one position and a budget transfer from reserves to fund this new position and the required equipment in order to get this position in place. And that is all I have today.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Heatherington.
I will move staff's recommendation for approval for all the items.
I second.
Any further discussion? There's a motion by Commissioner Heatherington, seconded by Commissioner Vargas. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, contracts that meet the threshold for board approval, $1 million or greater. Ms. Brotherton. Oh, let's get where we need to go here.
I have heard before that you're from Palm City.
I am from Palm City, yes.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Christy Brotherton, Chief Procurement Officer. I have 5 items for your consideration today, and the first item is the construction contract for the Evergreen Country Club Windstone Subdivision Water Main Extension Project. You heard this item previously under PH1, so this is the construction contract award. And staff is recommending that the board award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, which is Jamie Underground, in the amount of $4,421,570, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. The next item is a contract for the Tropical Farms Water Treatment Plant expansion. This is for engineering services. And staff is recommending that the board award the contract to Kimley Horn and Associates in the amount of $2,462,179.49, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. The next contract for your approval is professional services for the MacArthur Boulevard Beach and Dune project. And staff is recommending that the board award the contract to Taylor Engineering in the amount of $1,563,612.90, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. And next, we have a contract award for professional services for the Hutchinson Island Shore Protection Project. And staff is recommending that the board award the contract to Taylor Engineering in the amount of $3,407,437.40, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. And last but not least, we have the professional engineering services related to solid waste and landfill contract. This contract has a maximum not to exceed value of $3,500,000 with a maximum not to exceed term of 5 years. And staff is recommending that the board award the contract to 2 vendors. The first one is CDM Smith, and the second vendor is Jones, Edmonds, and Associates. And move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. And that concludes this item.
Questions for Ms. Brotherton?
Can you tell us a little bit about your procurement procedures and what leads you to recommend a particular vendor?
So all of these contracts were formally bid. The first one is a construction contract, so we followed the RFB process, which is based strictly on price, so it's request for bid. We go out to bid, we evaluate the bids for responsiveness and responsibility, meaning that they're properly licensed, they have the required experience and whatnot, that there's no bid irregularities that would kick their bids out. Jamie Underground was the lowest responsible bidder, so they were recommended for contract award. The other 4 contracts, these are all RFQs, so requests for qualification contracts, and those are all governed under the Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act. So these are anything that have to do with professional engineering, surveying, landscape architects, things of that nature. So we follow a 2-step process per statute. So once we get our proposals in, it's based on qualifications only. There's no price that's provided in this process. The first step is to shortlist, and as you see in the agenda items, we went out to bid twice for all 4 of these items because CCNA, Florida statute, requires us to shortlist no fewer than 3 firms. We were not successful in getting 3 submittals for any of those contracts. And what we've been doing is if we go out the first time, we receive less than 3, we cancel the solicitation, we re-advertise. And that's after we review the solicitations to make sure there's nothing in there that's unduly restrictive, because we're trying to get more interest. We want people to bid on our contracts, obviously. Unfortunately, when we survey a lot of these firms, they either don't meet the minimum qualifications, they don't have the proper licensing, or their schedules just don't allow them to commit to contracts sometimes that span over multiple years. So when we go back out to bid for the second time, if we receive less than 3 bids, we evaluate it. One of the projects, we only received 1 response, and our purchasing manual allows for us to enter into negotiations, assuming that they are responsive and qualified. The other contracts where we received only 2 responses, we went through the selection committee process, so that the first one was to shortlist. Then the second meeting is to do interviews or presentations, and then the committee will score and make a recommendation of award.
And a committee of staff.
Yes, the committee staff. Sometimes we do have subject matter experts that are outside of the county that we'll see, but most of the selection committees are comprised of 5 members. So,
4 of them were RFQs?
Correct.
And what was the name of that other one, the first
an
one?
RFB is a request for bid, and that's awarded solely on price.
And Commissioners, on the RFQ, some of those that we don't receive that many bids are typically more specialty type contracts. And given the amount of work in the state of Florida right now, people are very busy, and the market for specialty engineers, surveyors, whatever, is tight, and so they're busy, and so you just don't have that much selection. So that's what it comes down to. Some of those projects where we've had to rebid several times or re-advertise is because there's just not that many businesses in, for instance, like the coastal arena, and they're all busy all over the state dealing with other damages, and so we're left with who we've been working with.
And I just want to point out also, when we receive few bids or we rebid, we will reach out to anybody that downloaded the solicitation and request that they fill out a statement of no bid to try to learn why they downloaded the solicitation but didn't submit a bid. So it gives us some feedback. Staff's really good about doing their research. We tweak things even before we put things out on the streets. But again, like Mr. Donaldson said, we're dealing with very slim pickings sometimes because there's a lot of work and people just can't commit to the schedule. So.
But the good news is the people that you have selected are world-class.
Absolutely.
All of these names are industry leaders, so it's not like you're digging through the bottom.
No, absolutely not.
These are the best that you could get.
And they're vetted. We have a very involved procurement process as far as when we get submittals in, they're looked at multiple times over and over. We have checklists, so we do have very good vendors that are doing work for us. So.
Commissioner Heatherington.
That was a light for a motion to accept staff's recommendation for approval.
Okay. Commissioner Vargas.
Yes, just want to get clarification. What about those businesses that are here in Martin County? And they may be small businesses, they cannot afford the bond. They
Right.
don't have the insurance, all of that, but they're able to provide a service or a product as a subcontractor to a larger entity?
So for these particular projects, like Mr. Donaldson had mentioned, they're very involved. There's a lot of experience that's required. A lot of those companies will subcontract their work to local firms. We always encourage that, especially the DBE, MBE, so our minority small business companies. There are some contracts that actually require that. Florida statute requires and encourages the use of those types of firms. But if they are grant funded in any way, we cannot force local preferences or things of that nature. But we're always encouraging our businesses that are not able to be the primes to always reach out. We do have some that reach out for plan holder lists for the companies that do download our solicitations to try to link up to provide subcontracted services to those vendors. So does that answer? Yep.
It does.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a second?
May I just make one other point for my new colleague? In years past, when we talked about having local ordinances, which makes perfect sense to try to support our local businesses, the much larger counties to the north and south start to think about doing the same thing and then exclude our local businesses from doing business in Palm Beach or St. Lucie County. So for whatever they could potentially gain by being the local for Martin County, they give up that if St. Lucie and Palm Beach or Okeechobee, not so much Okeechobee, but the other two big ones did the same thing. So our local businesses asked us not to do that.
Yeah, and we do have a local vendor preference. Again, we cannot enact that if it's any type of grant funding. We're prohibited from doing that. And we do have an interlocal process that I believe St. Lucie County is the only one that we participate with right now. But other counties can choose to honor the local vendor preference, but St. Lucie is the only one that has taken that into account. And if we ever have that, that'll be noted in the agenda items. so.
Right. Thank you.
Commissioner Heatherington?
My light was just to mention the local vendor preference.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, I forgot who. Was it Heatherington? It was the there's a motion by Commissioner Heatherington, seconded by Commissioner Vargas. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you for that wonderful explanation.
Hey, anytime, that's what I'm here for.
Okay, we did that. On to Department 4, request to discuss the text amendment to the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan revising the rural lifestyle future land use designation. It was requested by Commissioner Hurd.
Not familiar. Chairman.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Clyde Doolin. I'm a comprehensive planning administrator. There's a summary of the rural lifestyle future land use designation here in the background. This was requested by Commissioner Hurd to bring this item forward. Our motion is to move that the board adopt the attached resolution to initiate a text amendment to policy 4.13A18, which is the citation for the rural lifestyle future land use designation. If the board initiates the attached resolution, staff will begin work on proposed text changes. We'll present it to the local planning agency. It'll then be brought to the board for a transmittal hearing, and then off to the state and back for a final adoption hearing, as are all of our text amendments, go through the 3-hearing process. And along the way, we would take, of course, public comment and recommendations from the local planning agency and any direction that the board wants to make at the transmittal hearing, for instance. And of course, the board would also have final decision at the adoption hearing. So there would be ample opportunity to give staff direction on proposed changes to the rural lifestyle future land use text. The alternative recommendation listed here in this agenda item is to provide staff with further direction on other proposed changes to the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan. That's all I have. Be happy to answer any questions that I can.
Mr. Johnson?
I just wanted to emphasize, I think the Commissioner Hurd had stated in the last meeting that this text amendment initially focuses on the relationship of rural lifestyle to the freestanding urban service boundary. That's it. All right. Thank you for getting that. And that's the principal change that is what we're starting with.
Okay. I just wanted to hit some, that is certainly a top priority for me, is to eliminate using the freestanding urban service districts for the rural lifestyle. Also, I looked through the rural lifestyle and found some other things that are troublesome. And that is, the first one is in paren 10, which is the accessory dwelling units on the lot shall not count as a separate unit for the purpose of density calculations. And that's talking about, let's see. And golf cottages also shall not, right?
That's correct.
I would like to examine whether or not they can be counted. I also would like to examine removing the secondary urban service boundary. In 11C, it says where the extension of wastewater utility service is not cost feasible, enhanced nutrient-reducing on-site sewage treatment disposal systems may be used. Are those like package plants?
No, that's a new requirement in Florida statute. There are certain portions of Martin County where septic systems will no longer be allowed, and that these enhanced wastewater treatment systems will have to be used.
Commissioners, I think under the concept of those units, they would actually be operated by your utility, but they are an on-site, I think they're permitted as an on-site wastewater treatment facility, but they're small. So it's not a package plant, but it's still a small unit processing but instead of having the HOA or the development run the facility under the state statute, I believe it requires the utility to operate it.
Okay. And I'm in number paren 12, and that's talking about an applicant for a PUD shall plan and appropriately fund public facilities consistent with policy 14.1B2, which requires that future development shall pay for the full cost of the capital improvements necessary to address the impacts of such development. We saw this morning that they don't begin to cover the costs of of the development. They don't begin to pay for themselves. So now we're having to consider building fire stations all over, 3 new fire stations in western Martin County in order to accommodate the capacity needs of these developments. So at a minimum, there have to be in these PUDs provisions for provision of these public utilities, these public services. I mean, there's, at a minimum, the PUD zoning agreement shall require the following public benefits. They're completely non-specific. You know, if we're going to get serious about them providing development paying for itself, then let's put it in the definitions. And also in 15, it says if approval of a final site plan does not occur within 5 years, the Board of County Commissioners may initiate amendment to the future land use map to cause the property to revert to its prior future land use designation. I suggest it should be shall. Those are some of the preliminary changes I would like to see in the rural lifestyle. And I don't know if this is another request to amend the comp plan, but I would like to see all freestanding urban service boundaries eliminated. And existing ones can no longer be expanded.
We would need to do another resolution
Okay.
to bring that back.
Okay. We used to allow package plants until we finally recognized that they were harming us more than helping us. So I think we need to come to the realization that freestanding urban service boundaries are an abomination. They prevent planning. They prevent provision of services. Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. It is December. It's nearly Christmas. We should be giving our lists. Just for clarification's sake, we're not building 3 new fire stations. We are relocating, potentially relocating one, building one, and expanding the one in Indiantown, but neither here nor there. I voted no on the rural lifestyle. So a lot of her changes I get. However, the folks that have taken advantage of opportunities that are ongoing, they are grandfathered in, or we're gonna open ourselves up to wrath of lawsuits. We're lawsuit averse. So that being said, if someone's already gotten started,
Yeah, so if someone already is granted a rural lifestyle future land use designation, they would get to keep what they have. We could get lawsuits under the Burt J. Harris for someone who owns an existing piece of property or just purchased a piece of property and was planning to do rural lifestyle, and then we change it. That's a possibility that can't be ruled out. So those are the two risks.
I haven't heard of any.
Yeah, no, I don't know of any either, but I'm just saying that's a possibility for lawsuits if you're
Hear you.
asking.
Hear you. And as Mr. Doolin, you had said originally, my colleague, she's more than entitled to bring forward everything that she would like to, but there will be the process, LPA, transmittal hearing, come back from hearing. So, because I don't mind that she's moving forward very quickly with her ideas today, but whether you're on one side of the aisle or the other should still be the appropriate full vetting process for the public to participate, whether they think these ideas are terrific or whether they think these ideas are terrible. We're going to do that, correct?
Absolutely.
And as a reassurance to the people that have already begun these projects, we're not going to launch into a hole trying to pull the rug out from the existing projects that are already in the works. Most of, if not all, everything that Commissioner Hurd is talking about is forward thinking, forward looking.
That's my understanding, and the specifics can be dealt with in the proposed text amendments.
Okay. Well, I mean, and just for our new colleagues and for Commissioner Heatherington and I, this is one set of suggestions coming from Commissioner Hurd that I want everyone to understand what's taking place here, that we're asking staff, basically, we're doing a county-initiated comprehensive plan changes. There's a lot of staff time and effort and money for the staff time, so let's all make sure we're understanding what Commissioner Hurd is asking for and that we agree. Because if we start doing this now, I don't want to be here in the spring and be like, hey, I got a whole nother series of comprehensive plan changes that the staff, or in this particular case, a commissioner, could be me next time, I'm not saying it won't be, I'm just saying that with that in mind, we're launching into individual commissioner initiation of comprehensive plan changes, requesting staffs who has basically a full plate of work to take on an additional plate of work. May be perfectly acceptable. I just want to be clear that we're having like a very quick, kind of casual conversation on a pretty big thing. I practically agree with most of the issues that she brought up, but it's big. Comprehensive plan changes used to be pretty significant. Now all of a sudden we're just doling them out.
Well, we've initiated our.
Oh, I get it, but I mean, this just seems to be sort of casual. It's a pretty big deal.
It should be.
Big deal or casual?
Big deal.
That's what I'm saying. It's a big deal. We're just popping them out there one after the other. Okay, that's all I have.
Commissioner Heatherington.
When, I just want to clarify, when you used the language you were going to remove, you desired to remove freestanding urban service boundary, I understood that as you wanted to remove the applicability of rural lifestyle next to.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, I just want to make sure that that was the intent.
And a separate one is to no longer allow freestanding urban services boundaries anywhere.
So for
So
instance,
you meant both?
That'll be a separate one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
one on a different date, or you're going to make a next one next?
No, they'll have to bring back a resolution for that one, too.
Okay, that was a good clarification, because.
Can you give me a for instance?
About what?
Freestanding, for the next resolution, a freestanding, elimination of a freestanding urban service boundary, you're talking ag tech?
It's existing.
Okay, so you're talking about making new ones?
No new ones.
Okay.
No new ones, and no expansion of existing ones. So at the size that ag tech, the boundaries of ag tech's freestanding, never will increase.
We'll wait until that one comes up.
Commissioner Vargas?
Yes, I do agree that this is a huge issue. I see your points. However, the more that we think about changing the comp plan or tweaking it, additions, subtractions, that may bring more novel ideas, especially from those that are new on this board. And I would like to be given the opportunity, after more thorough studying, to be able to approach the board and, of course, the department to be able to take this into consideration. I think that's viable, as you would in a company.
Well, just remember, you're not allowed to approach us individually outside of this.
I understand that. I'm talking about the board here.
I came from corporate America. It's completely a weird kind of anomaly.
And so did I, too.
We're not
I
allowed to speak to
understand
each
that.
other,
I understand that.
which would sometimes
I
make.
understand that, Commissioner. I
know you
understand
do.
that. I'm talking about this board and the dice. That's what I'm talking about. But of course, we're thinking people, and we bring to the table different ideas, and corporate is totally different. We're talking about governmental. I was at the ethics training this weekend also, so I'm very clear on that. And some of the licenses I hold are very strict insofar as ethical behavior. But having said that, is this something that we can do? We can bring forth more ideas. Is this living, or is this something that's stagnant? Mr. Donaldson?
Board-initiated comprehensive plan amendments are usually not numerous. I will say they come up on occasion, usually for a specific purpose, as was brought up today. We might do it for property we own, too. We may acquire environmental land, and we would do a staff-sponsored comprehensive plan amendment to change whatever it is to conservation or that type of thing. So I'd only say that it is not something we schedule as a routine basis to say, let's talk about the comp plan and its amendments. It's usually either driven by, in this case, a commissioner bringing up an issue, or the community might bring up something to us. So no, it's I would say that if the board is looking at, a strategic priority in terms of what we're doing with comprehensive plan changes. The EAR obviously is something that brings up a forced look at the comp plan, and of course, that's coming back to us. So you'll have a chance to look at those EAR-based amendments, and I'm sure there'll be discussion at those of whether or not all of those will be implemented or not. And so during that time, I would say there's an opportunity for you to look at what is required by the state and those items that we put up. So I would suggest that the board collectively, if you want to consider looking at the comp plan as a board, you should consider that more as a strategic objective as opposed to an ad hoc presentation.
Okay, so you mean strategic in the sense that it is planned, it's already provided for the time, rather than let's just discuss this on the moment. I know this is a listed agenda item. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that would be my suggestion, but it is still you still all have a voice and can bring anything up as you decide at any time.
Commissioner Capps?
So the issue before us here at this moment in time is just to seek to further amend the text of the rural lifestyle future land use designation. All of the particulars that have been enumerated will be vetted and discussed thoroughly by us at a later time. But right now, we're just proposing to further amend the text.
Correct.
Right.
And staff will go through the points that Commissioner Hurd brought up and make proposed changes and bring those back to the board.
As part of our staff analysis, yes.
So I would make that motion.
What's the motion?
To further amend the text of rural lifestyle future land use designation according to the resolution.
Second.
And does that include the comments made by Commissioner Hurd on specifics that she referenced?
Well, as I understand it, that's, I think, the purpose of our discussion here is to make sure that we have plenty of time to talk about these items.
Yeah, that's fine.
later.
That's fine.
Yeah, so, because those are big discussions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like a lot of the ideas presented, but, I think we ought to have a lot of talk about that
Thank you.
later on.
And I second that motion.
There's a motion by Commissioner Capps, seconded by Commissioner Vargas. All those, yes?
Clarifying, so the motion is that you're taking all the feedback today, and staff is going to analyze it and bring back some proposed changes. Okay. Good.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, members of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Commissioners, the EAR amendments will be coming back to this board for final adoption or not, sometime in the first of the year, right?
Probably in February or March.
Okay. Sorry. So we'll have lots of time to evaluate the proposed changes that were made on October 22nd. All right, now we are to Department 6. Small cell wireless update.
Yeah, good afternoon. Matt Hammond. I have the privilege of serving as Assistant County Engineer. Bringing before you an item that was requested 2 meetings ago. The topic of 5G garnered a lot of attention back in 2019 when the state of Florida passed some significant preemptions, removing a lot of the control of installation of 5G infrastructure from cities and counties. I did have the opportunity to meet with the residents on either side of the poll that did come up last month and were in question, and make sure they were aware of the topic that was coming up today, as well as talk through the information that is being presented. So 5G stands for fifth generation wireless technology. Nationwide deployment began in earnest in 2019. 5G operates on higher frequencies over a broader range than previous cellular networks. For example, 4G generally operates on 6 gigahertz and less, whereas 5G operates on that and up to 40 gigahertz and higher. With that comes higher wireless speeds, capacity, reliability, and opens up expanded connected services. And to put that a little bit in perspective, or I guess a good analogy of that is, for those of us that remember radio, the difference between AM and FM. And 4G, where 4G service can serve thousands of devices per square mile, 5G is in the millions per square mile. With that different range of frequencies comes a different type of network to serve it. 5G is delivered on a network of small wireless communication infrastructure, also called small cell wireless, which means lots of smaller poles as opposed to fewer larger poles. There's 3 main types of 5G or small cell wireless installations that you'll see around. One is co-location on an existing pole. Another one would be co-location on an overhead wire. And the third, which is be the most common, would be the installation of a new pole. The top photo that you see there on the slide, that's actually the first small cell wireless installation that came through as permitting when that first came around in Martin County. About 5 years ago, when this first came around, the wireless industry, in partnership with federal and state governments, were very proactive in paving the way for these installations, stripping a lot of the control over 5G installations from cities and counties, primarily through FCC Order 18233, as well as Florida Statute 337-401-7, which is also called the Advanced Wireless Infrastructure Deployment Act. Both of those, the order and the statute, have been challenged by entities such as the Florida League of Cities, as well as different cities within the state, and they were unsuccessful in that. And they were very specific, particularly the Advanced Wireless Infrastructure Deployment Act is very specific, and written to ensure that small cell wireless facilities are passed quickly and as frictionlessly as possible by wireless providers and their installers. With that, there's a long and specific list of things that cities in Florida cannot do when it comes to wireless installations. And these things apply so long as the wireless provider is installing infrastructure that fits within the specific box of what's in the act. A pole no taller than 50 feet. The antennas are no larger than 6 cubic feet. The antennas are installed no higher than 10 feet above the pole. When they stay within that, there's a fairly long list of protections that they get through here. Some of these are cities and counties are not able to deny a permit that meets the state statutes. They're not able to delay a permit. Both the FCC order and Florida statute have shot clocks or timelines that these have to be turned around in. They're not able to dictate utility or pole locations or regulate based on the effects of radio frequency emissions. Cities and counties can't prevent the co-location of antennas on existing poles. They're not able to require direct or indirect notification of the installations to the public. Cannot require antennas be grouped onto a single pole or grouping of antennas, or limit the size of poles or antennas beyond what's specifically spelled out in Florida statute, or cannot require unrelated work outside of what's specifically required for the installations, or even require a pre-application meeting. So I guess that leads to what can we do? What is available to cities and counties on these? Primarily, it's based on requiring compliance with basic safety requirements, safe line of sights in intersections, safe clear zones away from travel lanes, compliance with the American Disabilities Act. There's also language in there for adopting limited design standards based on aesthetics and other items with some very tight boxes around that. As a county, when this topic emerged, was an emerging topic about 5 years ago, Public Works and legal staff reviewed the act that was coming out and the implications of that. And what was settled on, what was found, was that the existing right-of-way use permit process was the best way to move forward with permitting these installations specifically within right-of-ways, with the limited authority that is available to the county. That right-of-way use permit process is the same process that's used for all right-of-way use requests. The Florida statute, the Act specifically, in a number of places, emphasizes treating these as non-discriminatory, and so this does that. The timelines, the shot clocks that were provided in there are what we hold ourselves to already fell within those shot clock, those time frame requirements. And so we have within the Public Works Department, we have a very good team that looks at those and reviews these installations based on those safety requirements, as well as things like maintenance of traffic, if there's vehicle or pedestrian impacts that are going to be there. And when there are public notifications that are provided out in accordance with the county public notification policy. And to date, where we stand right now, since this came out about 5 years ago, the 5G installations, there's been about 40 permits that have come through for infrastructure within county right-of-ways, or about 9 a year have come through. So with that, I know Mr. Shalmo has been very patiently waiting and is here to address the board. Appreciate the time to be able to present this information to you, and staff is here and happy to answer any questions.
Welcome, Mr. Shalmo. Please come forward.
After he's done.
Great presentation. Thank you. Thank you for that. Welcome to the board. Thank you again for allowing me to address the board today. I want to express my gratitude on your decision to temporarily halt the construction of the 5G cell tower in front of my home. The electronics have not yet been installed, and I'm just curious if anyone has had the chance just to visit the street and see it. And if I have time at the end, I just wanted to clarify a misstatement that I made last time I was here. But since our last meeting, I reached out to our governor's office, the FCC, the Florida's Attorney General's office, and the Department of Agriculture, and unfortunately, each agency deflected responsibility to one another and to you. And the FCC confirmed that they license wireless providers but have no control over tower placement, while the Attorney General's office suggested filing complaints with various agencies, and we unfortunately don't have any new facts that we can present today, but no authority that we can tell these wireless companies what is off limits with the right-of-ways. They could place a tower every 50 feet if they wanted to without restrictions. At this point, we're unsure if anyone can help, since the state and FCC have neutered the county's ability and authority to limit wireless providers' ambitions. This leaves our county residents and my family in a difficult position. Now, our concern is one, just impact on our property values. We've reached out to 8 county realtors to get an appraisal on our home with this new cell tower in place. All realtors have confirmed that our home would be harder to sell at the original value prior to the installation of the tower. Their studies consistently show property values near cell towers drop 7 to 15%. In our case, it could be up to 20% because of the height, and there's no other structures around it, no trees covering it. The financial loss from this tower's placement is a significant burden to me and my neighbors. And to move forward constructively, we propose the following. One, relocation. The neighbors are willing to help fund the relocation of this tower to one of the alternative sites suggested by the permitting department. 2, contact AT&T again with more pressure from congressmen, the governor, and commissioners to relocate it. 3, aesthetic modifications. If relocation isn't possible, AT&T, we would like them to improve the tower's appearance. To blend in with the surroundings, use designs like a tree disguise or neutral colors, and fix the 50-foot tall, 17-inch wide concrete tower's appearance. It's like the Washington Monument right in my yard. We recommend adopting new ordinances and new codes that specify requirements for certain aesthetic design standards for cell towers to preserve county character. And in wrapping up, I urge the commissioners to continue to advocate for a resolution and not give up today. More of these towers are being installed in neighborhoods next to homes, and there's really no end in sight. Since there's no action or vote proposed today, I was just wondering what's our next step here, and where can we move forward? And finally, I just want to thank Matt Hammond and his engineering and permitting team for their outstanding effort to help relocate this tower. They called AT&T, they asked them to remove it, relocate it. They proposed new locations, and I just really thank you for going above and beyond for that. While this has been challenging, we remain optimistic that we can resolve this issue in a way that protects our homes, our values, and our community. And just to go back to fix a statement I made last time I was here, I stated that from a document we received that there was a 155-foot permit given. This was misunderstanding. This was FDOT traffic blocking requirement for the installation. So it's not going to be a 155-foot tower. They came and measured. It's under 50 feet. It's actually 47 feet and so inches tall. So I just wanted to apologize for that misstatement. And thank you for your time and action and attention. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Commissioner Campy.
Mr. Shalmo, thank you very much. Last time you were here, I remember that you presented information in such a really well-done professional manner, and you've done it again.
Thank you.
This makes it much easier for us to sort of comprehend. Is this a picture of your yard?
That's my house.
Can you put this on the doc cam so people at home can see what we're talking about, please?
Well, let me just take my name off of that. And-
People want to call you.
Yeah.
They want to come by and see you. First off, from our point of view, Mr. Hammond, first, thank you for your efforts, and I appreciate your helping. When we had heard this the last time, it's just one of those things. Everyone talks about preemption and the state taking charge of local issues. To me, this is a glaring one. Now, we have had cell phone issues as long as I've been sitting up here. Down in the Little Club, down in Tequesta, that was a huge issue. And that was not nearly as terrible as this one. It was tucked into some trees. They tried to make it look like a tree. It was much taller than everything around it, but at least there was things around it. And we really worked. And then there's been others up at the VFW Hall in Jensen, and it was back and forth on their property. There's one there. It's not as large as it used to be, but there's one on church property in Palm City, right?
Yeah, the cross.
The cross, which I thought was clever because it was on church property. And but if you look at the picture here, this is like an affront to the site selection process. It's literally right in the center of the sidewalk. So if there's ADA compliant issues, if I'm in a wheelchair or ADA, I don't see putting it directly. Is this the actual picture? I see. Does our staff agree that this is exactly what it is?
It is at the moment. Before it's closed out and cleared out, the sidewalk is required to be meandered around it.
Okay. So, but I mean, that's just where they decided to put it in the meantime. So you're going to have to, at whose expense? Ours? We're going to have to redesign and recreate the sidewalk?
No, we're working with AT&T. That's something they're footing.
So I appreciate when you showed the whole list of things that we can't do, and you said that there was a couple that we could. I would make a motion that we have our chair send a letter to, I get the governor and the rest of it, but to AT&T and to the appropriate departments and CC Commissioner, Representative Oberdorf, Representative Snyder, Senator Harrell, Congressman Mast, because you've been very, very professional and actually very accommodating in your frustration. And if any one of us, if this was happening in front of any of our homes, we'd be pulling our hair out. And I took a note that said 5G, you said 4G was hundreds of thousands of people within per square mile, and 5G can service millions of people per square mile. I don't understand why. To me, this is like AT&T almost allegedly thinking, we'll just put it wherever we want. They could, no one at AT&T, is this exclusively an AT&T poll? Were they the ones that made this determination?
They're the particular applicant for.
Okay. They didn't even think, and you guys gave suggestions. This is like, let's see where's the most offensive place we could put this. That's what this looks like. It doesn't look like anyone took a minute to think about where could we put this 150 feet somewhere else that it didn't have to be right there. Now, when I had my conversation with staff, they said, and I'm not saying that staff is part of this. I'm sure staff is frustrated like we're frustrated, like you're, well, not as much as you, but we feel you. This was because it was the furthest away from individual houses, but that's not fair to them. This is their property. Can you imagine you purchased the biggest investment you're going to make in your entire life? You're going to spend as much money on one thing as you possibly could. It's your home. And then one day, some guys at a corporation decided, we're going to put this out in front of your house. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing the local government can do about it. And basically just tough luck. It insults me personally on your behalf, and I can't imagine this is as bad as it could be. And I think that we continue to try. I don't know, maybe we're going to be Man of La Mancha, but I think we have to try. This is the worst. And if you have contact information for the folks that you're dealing with at AT&T, send it to my office. I'd at least like to share my thoughts with them personally. Could paint it Disney green. Or, you could put lights on and make it a Christmas tree, and then you could put Cupids on it, make it Valentine's Day, and you could put a
Turn it
flag
into a
on it, make it
cross.
4th of July.
Then the county
Yeah.
will want it removed, or maybe.
Right.
or the other-
And I mean, I don't even mean to kid or make jokes, because I get it. I'm not an appraisal expert or a real estate agent. I cannot imagine that doesn't hurt the value of your home.
It will.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I agree with all that you just said, and I would like to suggest to you that our legislative delegation meeting is January 9th at Indian River State College, where both of our representatives, our state senator, and I believe, I'm not completely sure, but you can sign up. You have to sign up ahead of time, but I believe that you can speak on an item. So that is January 9th, 2025, 9 to 12 at Indian River State College. And I think that might be a great place to address these with some of the state legislative delegation as well.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Capps.
Yes, you mentioned something about reaching out about alternative sites to AT&T. Did I hear that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, what was their response there on that issue?
Yeah, so the conversations, which were positive in nature, I will say AT&T agreed to pause any work until this meeting was held and out of respect for the process. But the feedback that's as part of those conversations were related to the coverage, the cell coverage that they were able to get there versus other locations.
So they feel like this spot is uniquely good. I mean, and then they really want it here, and they're rather inflexible at this point.
Based on the conversations at this point.
How often do they have them in residential neighborhoods like this? It seems that many cell towers in South County, down where I live, are on commercial properties, and not so much in residential neighborhoods like this. Is this common?
It's fairly common within Martin County, within, not just Martin County, but within public rights of way.
Right.
I have them in my neighborhood.
Yeah, but not like right out, like in your,
Not in front of my house.
you could mount your mailbox to this.
Thinking about it.
I like the concept of speaking at the legislative, but for your specific issue, I think you need to bring it much closer to home. I think it's because you're not looking to change the whole system. You're looking to change this one particular poll location.
I'm willing to do anything.
Yeah.
but,
I'm just saying that changing the whole system, our representatives at the state level are terrific, but this is a big ask. I'm thinking that if we have a conversation with AT&T, that just to give you some type of relief, and I get that legally and legislatively they're allowed to, but just because they can doesn't mean they should.
Yeah, this is a uniquely good spot for AT&T, but also for us. And that's why we bought this spot. And we didn't want anyone else to put something in the way of us to have it a uniquely good spot.
Well, we'll see what we can do. We're not done yet.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes, did AT&T give you a reason as to why they would not consider another location?
Yeah, so the conversations that we had when we were talking about other locations had to do with the cellular coverage that they were trying to achieve with this pole. So again, kind of going back to lots of smaller poles versus a few larger poles. They're trying to cover specific areas, and this particular location, again, from AT&T, from a corporate perspective, met the need that they were trying to achieve.
I certainly can sympathize with you. I have a real estate background, and I know real estate very well. I've worked on both coasts in my training wheels in Miami. And it definitely could be something as detrimental to the resale value of your home. See what other avenues can open up. If you need each of us to write letters, we will gladly do that on your behalf. And as a professional, I definitely can weigh in very well on that for you. Not at all.
Any further comment?
So Commissioner Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney, just for the record, we have a motion from Commissioner Campy, which I don't think was seconded, so I just want to make sure that that's.
To send a letter
Yes.
AT&T?
Yeah, I think nobody seconded it, so.
I second it.
Okay.
There's a motion by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Welcome.
Thank you.
And let's see. Second to last item is Department 7, Environmental Lands Oversight Committee Guidance. I just want to say at the beginning of this agenda item that John and Sarah Powers and I went to Washington, D.C. last week and to attend the Ecosystem Restoration Task Force Advisory Committee. And it's a group of appointed state and federal stakeholders. And Martin County is so unique in Florida and perhaps in the United States in that we're such good partners about these acquisition of conservation lands and insistent about improving our water quality. And nobody else partners with the state and with the feds like we do. And I of course, brought up at the task force the fact that our voters had given us an additional 10 years of half-cent sales tax in order to enrich our conservation lands purchases. That's impressive. When you take that to the state and to the federal government, you get really, really enthusiastic, willing partners. And then we also visit, so that was one day, and the other day was visiting appropriators. Another, really, really important trip to make is visiting people who are going to be potentially our partners. And it's impressive. Nobody does it like Martin County. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is John Mayle. I'm the Environmental Resource Administrator for Martin County. I have here with me Mike Houston, who's a Senior Project Manager in the division, and he will be taking a lead role in executing our new sales tax funded conservation land acquisition program. So thank you for the opportunity to give you a little update today. To Commissioner Hurd's point, as we were discussing Martin County's priorities and issues with our delegation, oftentimes they would sit attentively and listen, but as soon as Commissioner Hurd would mention that we are taxing ourselves to participate as a collaborative partner in funding conservation land priorities, they would pick up their pencils and start writing. So it does get their attention, and it makes it much easier for us to collaborate with those partners. So this item was kind of to continue the conversation, to provide an update on staff progress, and also to get more information, education, and feedback on the establishment of the Environmental Lands Oversight Committee that the ordinance calls for. So as you all know, but for the record, November 5th, the voters of Martin County approved a dedicated funding source for the acquisition of environmentally sensitive lands. That ordinance also, in contrast with the last ordinance that did so in 2006 that also passed, this one narrowly defined the acquisition areas to 4 program areas. And I'll go through those just briefly for the record and for your memory. The first area that was identified was Indian River Lagoon South, natural lands component of Phase 2. That's a mouthful of bureaucracy, but essentially it is the lands that would meet the objectives of the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan in Martin County. And those objectives include natural area storage and treatment of water, stormwater. They include habitat restoration to kind of offset the loss of habitat from reservoirs that are built. They take away some of the habitat, and this is one of the arguments for natural lands was to provide a mitigation for that. They also provide recreational opportunity. They provide aquifer recharge. And they help hold the needle so that the problem doesn't get worse in those areas. So any lands that are acquired in that would be in partnership with the Water Management District and pursuant to the achievement of those SERP objectives. One of the neat things about those acquisitions is the county's contribution to that will be some portion of the purchase price or conservation easement price, but it will also leverage on a 50-50 basis federal investment in Everglades restoration. So there's an incredible return on investment in those properties. One of the other areas that were identified in the ordinance for acquisition would be Palmar, which we're all very familiar with. Recently, we negotiated a settlement on a case in Palmar that will increase the public holding by 1,500 acres. This sales tax will help to fund that settlement agreement and also to prepare us to negotiate on acquisition of remaining private holdings in Palmar. The third area would be, we call it Loxalucy. It's really the land that would have been historically a slough that connects the winding South Fork of the St. Lucie River and the North Fork and Kitchen Creek of the Loxahatchee River. And it's also property that would create a connection between Atlantic Ridge State Park and Jonathan Dickinson State Park. And the result would be a phrase we've been kicking around the last few years, a super park, that's really unparalleled on the lower East Coast. The trail connectivity opportunities, the wildlife corridor opportunities in that acquisition effort would really make us a regional, if not national, benchmark for large-scale restoration and setting aside natural areas for the public. And the last area that the ordinance allows for acquisition would be our Florida Blueways. Those tend to be smaller areas that provide access to the water, like beach properties, riverfront properties. We have a long history of success with providing public access to the water and protection of shoreline through that program. And so there's 4 program areas. One of the things that the ordinance requires is the establishment of an oversight committee. In our last dedicated funding source for conservation lands, we had what was called a Land Acquisition Selection Committee. As Mike has been updating our land acquisition manual and the parameters for how this committee will function, we've really had to think kind of with fresh lenses on what that committee stands for and how it functions. Because of the fact that this ordinance was so narrowly focused on 4 specific conservation land programs, there wasn't as much of a need for a robust nomination and selection process. So Mike's really having to start from scratch with developing a manual to affect the establishment of the program. But the ordinance specifically calls out some generic descriptions for organizations that would be represented. And they are the following. It would be 4 members appointed from dedicated environmental organizations with missions focused on education, research, preserving, restoring, acquiring, and protecting the public's local water quality, the natural environment, and to enhancing and restoring local ecosystems. There are 3 members that shall be appointed with 1 member representing each of the following: an organization with a mission focused on fiscal oversight of government budgets and spending, an organization with mission focused on the real estate industry, and an organization with a mission focused on responsible business growth and economic development. And then lastly, there will be 2 members appointed from organizations with a mission focused on educating, promoting, and protecting the interest of agricultural farmers and ranchers. We have been reaching out to organizations to kind of figure out who's been active in Martin County, who has an active interest in participating in this, and we've had some conversations with you individually about those groups. And I think what will happen next is we'll bring you a future item with a list of organizations to make up those spots, those 9 positions, and then we would ask those organizations to nominate a representative to bring forward when we bring a resolution to establish the oversight committee. With that, I guess I'd be happy to take questions, and that's what Mike's here for.
Questions, comments, suggestions? Commissioner Vargas.
Yes, hi. Are you looking for more potential organizations to fill these particular places that will comprise? this committee?
Yeah, I would say if you have recommendations, we'd love to reach out to them and find out what their interest is. And, not every organization's active in Martin County. One of the nice things about the way this materialized is in the ordinance itself, we went with generic descriptions, largely at the county attorney's wisdom, that because if an organization ceases to exist or they have no participants, we can't really put it back to the voters to change the ordinance. That's not functionally a very efficient way to approach it. But by resolution of the board, we can repopulate one of these positions fairly quickly. So absolutely.
Do they have to be exclusively Martin County organizations?
It does not say that in the ordinance, but we have assumed that.
And the participants have to be Martin County residents.
I have some suggestions for the environmental folks, and I'm throwing these out, no order, no recommendations. They're just organizations that would be eligible.
They're on your Christmas wish list.
Yeah. So the first is Martin County Conservation Alliance, Martin County Native Plant Society, the Loxalucy Headwaters Initiative, the Indian River Keeper, and Rivers Coalition, Friends of the Everglades. I mean, these are just the obvious ones that came to mind, and all of them would be eligible. Guardians, for sure. Anybody else?
You already have several organizations, is that correct?
Yeah,
I think some of those may have been.
There's definitely interest from Martin County Forever, the new group that drove the campaign for this. The Everglades Foundation has expressed an interest in participation. Audubon of Martin County has expressed an interest. Rivers Coalition we had on our list.
These are all great.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, no shortage of good environmental groups to work with.
Now you
Okay,
have to fill
on
the other, the
to-
business.
The second group is an organization with a mission focused on fiscal oversight of government budgets and spending.
Taxpayers Association.
Okay. Anybody else?
Martin County Realtor.
No, well, that's a second group. This is, the first one is focused on fiscal oversight of government budgets and spending.
I think that would have to be them for the time being. Seemed pretty specifically aimed at that. We couldn't identify another group that would meet that definition that's active in Martin County.
Okay, then next one is real estate industry.
Martin County Realtor Board. It's the
Makes
only
sense.
way.
I think some of these we were using generic terms for the actual organizations, but some of those organizations, like the Taxpayers Association's been around for several decades, like 70 years. The Martin County Realtors Association's not going to pack up anytime soon. Those were partly designed specifically for those groups.
And the limitation with anyone from the Realtors Association is if they want to nominate properties for this process, and that would create a conflict of interest, so.
Potentially.
Yeah.
That's right, exactly.
That's the one that has the greatest potential for conflict.
Well, an agent, but
true.
not the organization.
Well, I think an agent should be a residential agent. A commercial agent definitely could step into that very quickly.
Certainly, thank you.
Or a broker that doesn't.
Well, part of it is allowing the individual organizations to nominate their person to come forward. That's correct. That's our interpretation. They'll obviously have to hear from you and Mike on what the criteria should be. And ultimately, when we bring forward a resolution to establish the committee, there'll be names in those spots, and so the board will have final say on.
There'll be a lot that we bring all at once, because we'll bring forward an item focused on the oversight committee members, but also updating the acquisition manual, a board resolution for the financing, how that's going to work. But at the end of the day, all decisions will be made through the county commission. So this group will make recommendations in terms of what lands they think, and evaluate and rank different properties for acquisition. But then it will be brought in front of the board, and it will be up to your decision as to whether or not that's an acquisition that we should pursue.
Yes.
Just a quick question. Is part of it, are we just waiting, is this organization just going to wait to hear from willing sellers, or will they be going out to solicit key properties that we think we should have?
The way the process is set up is that anyone can nominate a parcel for acquisition. There'll be a nomination form that gets filled out, and that will be returned to us, and then we'll evaluate and make sure that it meets with the intent of the ordinance 1221. If it does, then we'll have a procedure in place for this selection committee to evaluate these proposals. So we could do something like an environmental assessment or some other means so that they have something to look at to say, this is, and an evaluation matrix as well, some way for them to evaluate these properties and to score them in terms of how important they are and why we would be acquiring. And then that would then come before the county commissioners once they make recommendations.
Also to your question, Commissioner, there are lands that we have known about forever and have made previous attempts to acquire, and our partners at the state and federal level that our programs collaborate with, they've continued to pursue acquisitions. And so there's a lot of stuff that's just going to be a continuation that we actually now have funding to bring to the table. So I think it's quite possible that on some of these acquisitions, the South Florida Water Management District could be the lead, and we would just have a funding agreement approved by the board and looked at by the Oversight Committee, where we kick in a percentage to help with a collaborative priority.
That would be a huge consideration for me if we can find a funding partner that'll fund.
Well, that's the goal. Yeah. Was to match
four
and
times as much as we
partner.
do. Then.
And to that end, we have already been advertising, this new program. In fact, tomorrow we head up to Tallahassee, and we Thursday we'll meet with some leadership at DEP to let them know, hey, we're here, we're ready to partner on some of our collaborative priorities. We'll be speaking at the Acquisition Restoration Council meeting on Thursday afternoon, not necessarily to emphasize a particular project, but just to say, hey, we're coming, and we,
Now.
yeah.
You'll do a magic trick where you turn $1 into 4.
Commissioner Vargas.
No, that was my light from before.
How
Thank you.
about Commissioner Capps?
I had a comment back on the environmental groups, and I didn't quite get it in, but I think it would be really important to reward the people who headed up the initiative in the first place. If in deciding what environmental groups would be good, keep that in mind. The people who put the legwork in for this
Martin Forever.
half-cent sales tax. Certainly Martin County Forever, and I don't know if there were others that had a real presence in, doing the work. But, that would be a good thing to consider.
Ms. Woods.
I just wanted to point out when we were talking about the Board of Realtors, what the county attorney's office will do is make sure when we are at the solicitation point, we'll make clear conflict of interest and ethics issues so that our partner organizations know who to nominate, to the point that Commissioner Vargas made, to point out if it's somebody from the Board of Realtors, you want to appoint somebody that's not going to have a conflict, real estate knowledge, but not the conflict. Likewise with any of the other ones, perhaps the ag, to know, don't give us somebody that's going to want to do ag organizations. And the partnership, to what Mr. Mayo was mentioning, that's written into your ordinance. So you have, that additional ordinance compliance that's wonderful to have to represent for the folks that voted for this.
Okay, next one is organization with a mission focused on responsible business growth and economic development.
I think we have two options there. It would be the Business Development Board or the Economic Council.
They're obvious, yep. Anybody else?
Is there a preference on either of those, or should we,
I
we
think
could reach
they
out to them?
collaborate amongst each other. They could probably come forward and figure out, there's advantages for either.
But you'd be willing to listen to other names. This is not a final list today, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And last, 2 ag members.
We had spoke with.
4-H,
Yeah.
the obvious one.
The appeal of having a youth element involved in this is attractive.
Does Florida Farm Bureau have a local branch?
They do, yes.
Really?
Yep.
IFAS? I don't know if that would be considered an ag branch. IFAS? There's
Now, did that say 2 different organizations or 2 different members? Those are
It's 2 organizations, 2 members.
1 from each.
Correct.
Can't have 2 from 1.
I didn't consider that one.
You know, if they also are part of another organization, then they could represent that other organization.
True. That's what I was thinking, because
Yeah.
there's a couple of key players involved in ag,
Yeah.
but they might not be in 4-H, They might be grown.
Commissioner Capps.
Seems like in the ag category, there's a popular appeal for 4-H, and that seems to resonate. When it comes to the second person and ag, it seems that we're all struggling with finding the right organization and an organization that has local credibility and that people on the local scene are familiar with. So I don't know what we need to do about that, but I think we need to get comfortable
Just name 3.
with, or perhaps Commissioner Heatherington, do you,
FFA.
FFA, is there another one
Florida
that,
Farm
we're-
Bureau?
that,
Florida
I
Farm
think it's important that we have people that we're familiar with, and that we're not just taking a stab at with some new organization that nobody seems to know that much about.
You bet.
And you want somebody formidable, that's solid.
It seems like, too, we would want somebody who has knowledge of these areas and has connections with some of these different landowners. Because I think that's important, is just being able to approach these different owners and say, hey, we've got this pot of funding, you don't have to necessarily sell us a property, you can just give us a conservation easement and get some money from us and still be able to do exactly what you've been doing. So having, someone who has that kind of knowledge seems to be appealing, I guess.
Yeah, to Mike's point, there's the prescriptive role of the oversight committee member, but then there's also, at least at a staff level, we would hope to have some partners in that oversight committee that are uniquely poised to help with other aspects of the program. Just by being near to it and involved with it, there may be folks that have connections with our state and federal partners. There could be folks that could serve on the committee that also have agricultural relationships that speak that language and help negotiate with landowners. Any and all roles involved in this. There's plenty of work to do to make the program successful, and to have an actively and qualified, engaged oversight committee. I think we would be remiss not to engage them.
Sounds good. Any further comments, suggestions?
Does AWRA have a local members? I don't think so. Okay. That would be an environmental group, but I just thought of it. Yeah.
I think we're good.
We appreciate your feedback.
Thanks.
Thank you, Board.
And lastly, we have a request to approve the settlement agreement and release of liability between R. Eric LLC, a Florida limited liability company, and Martin County, a political subdivision of the state of Florida, in case number 23-14109-CIV-Cannon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Melissa Petrick, Senior Assistant County Attorney. As the board is aware, we were in litigation that started last April. It was in federal court. It was regarding our ordinance pertaining to the pet shops selling cats and dogs. As a result of that litigation, we have amended the ordinance that went before the board, which essentially grandfathered in two pre-existing businesses. As a result of that amendment, the county filed a motion to dismiss in federal court, asking the court to dismiss the complaint, being that it was moot. We did that hearing last November. Judge Cannon in federal court recently issued her order agreeing with the county that the issue is now moot, but also allowing counsel to file an amended complaint and to proceed further on this case. Plaintiff and the county attorney's office have entered into a settlement agreement, which would result in the payment of attorney's fees that included from last year up until the present. I have reviewed the attorney's fees. I have reviewed the itemized billing. It is legal's recommendation that we do agree, enter into this settlement agreement. It is for $250,000. And I would recommend or move that the board approve the settlement agreement and release of liability and authorize the chair or her appointee to execute all documents to complete this transaction and to authorize the transfer of funds from the general fund reserve. And just as a side note, this release of liability would then preclude any future lawsuits from the plaintiff in this action, and it would resolve the matter in its entirety.
Questions for Ms. Petrick? Comments? Motions?
Okay. I'd like to say that I really appreciate your efforts. I really do, and your staff. I sure would have liked to have been there at the beginning for negotiation. As county commissioners, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of Martin County. I don't take lightly our position as the guardians of tax revenue paid by our residents. Again, I appreciate all of your efforts, your skills in negotiation, but I still feel there's more room to go and that more should be done.
Commissioner Candy.
I see my colleague's point. However, the meter continues to run then, so that if it, look, I completely agree with your skill set, and then you weren't making this determination alone. You have a department that you've, our county attorney, so my concern would be, absolutely, I would love to continue to beat that number down, but in the process of beating the number down, it continues to grow.
It will, correct.
So I would make a motion to accept staff's recommendation, reluctantly, but it is what it is.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion. Oh, Commissioner Heatherington?
Yeah, that was.
That was a second. Commissioner Capps?
This is what it's called, I believe it's a 1983 action?
Yes.
Or is that what it's called?
It was a 1983 action. The litigant filed several claims underneath the 14th Amendment, also filed claims so that was underneath the U.S. Constitution, claims underneath the Florida Constitution, underneath Florida statute. It was, I believe, a 9-count complaint.
And that action is for violations of civil rights. And the way the statute reads on that particular type of action is that the prevailing party gets the attorney's fees against the non-prevailing party. And so the longer you draw out something, I mean, the plaintiff attorney's fees just keep climbing, and he gets those. As long as he's prevailing in the action, the settlement amount is going to, or the attorney's fees are going to keep climbing. And that's the reason it would be good to bring this to a conclusion.
That is correct. He's a prevailing party is entitled to attorney's fees, and the case law is strong out there that even if the county were to prevail, it is unlikely we would be able to recover our attorney's fees based upon case law.
And the rationale for a 1983 action is that when your civil rights are being violated, the government actually encourages lawsuits against itself in order to make sure that people's civil rights are not violated.
That is absolutely correct, and that's exactly why the case law discourages counties or the government from collecting its attorney's fees if it wins. It does want or encourages citizens to say when they feel that the government's wronged them.
Right. So it's a unique type of lawsuit,
Yes.
basically.
Correct.
Yeah, that has a lot of peril associated with it as far as claiming legal fees, you know.
I think it's important to note that our new colleague, Commissioner Capps, is also an attorney.
Yes.
Nice skill to bring to the table.
So we would have paid, or will be paying $315,000.
250.
No, plus the 65, correct, that was paid originally?
That was already done. Yes, that was already done.
that would be-
That was out of last year's budget. And that was regarding the other plaintiff in the case, which is resolved.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner Vargas dissenting. We've now, thank you. We've reached the end of our meeting. So now we have time for public. Anybody from the public want to address us? I don't see anybody. Commissioner comments. Let's start with Commissioner Heatherington.
I'm all set for today, thank you.
What about Commissioner Campy?
This is our last meeting of the year, and pre-holiday, so I'd like to take a moment to thank my colleagues, our county staff and residents, and wish them a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. I think those are the main three, but if not, whatever you're celebrating, I hope that the holidays are safe and festive, that you get time to spend with family and loved ones, that we enter into 2025 with our new colleagues. I wish them and us well for the coming year. And what I've normally been saying is it's a time for celebration and happiness, but it's also a sad time for many. So try to find an opportunity to reach out to a family member you haven't spoken to, a neighbor that might be alone, coworkers. Use it as an opportunity to lift up somebody else during the holidays that might be down. And with that, I wish you all well.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Commissioner Capps?
I'm good, thank you.
Commissioner Vargas?
Yeah, I think this is a wonderful time to be thankful. This has been a momentous year for at least two of us on this board, and we're very happy to be here to serve the community, to serve Martin County residents. We want everybody to look forward to the new year and the possibilities, because we certainly created it, and we know it can be done. I just have one little comment, if I may. The agenda packet, I think, can sometimes have too many items on it. I really want this to be considered. And today we faced just that. There were some very, items that were, let's say, a little contentious at times. And I don't think that we're able to give enough time and attention that those types of agenda items would deserve. So I respectfully request that maybe we work with staff to maybe limit the number of items, or we can prioritize key items, or maybe we can delegate or postpone certain topics. Now, I realize in January we will have 2 meetings. This was 1 month, 1 meeting. So hopefully this could be looked at, because I feel that maybe less items, more thorough discussion, more thought, and more preparation also, which I believe we all do before coming to these meetings, and that's essential also. So if we could consider that, I will bring that forward again in the new year, but just wanted to make a mention of that to everybody here.
Sure. We'll definitely try to manage our agendas responsibly.
Thank you.
And Commissioners Vargas and Capps, did you begin commission certification too?
I went to the ethics training. I was there for 4 days.
Boot camp.
Yeah, boot camp, we did that.
I think that comes later, after boot
Is
camp.
that true,
right?
Mr. Donaldson? Did we start this?
Yes, you did.
We just
Yes.
started. Okay, there's your answer.
They're terrific.
Their orientation.
That was fantastic. It was a fantastic 4 days, 3 days, yeah.
Yeah.
It really was. Made a lot of contacts with other small counties, and definitely want to help us because we do mirror. But we may have a great idea. They may,
biblically it says there's nothing new under the sun, right? So, so we definitely want not to reinvent the wheel, save time, maybe offer more suggestions for staff, and maybe they can tweak it, or we can, and, make Martin County great. Really, why not? We deserve it. So that's my Christmas wish.
Yes, Commissioners, I know this is our last meeting, but I have 3 items. One of them is work-related. The other 2 are just celebrating a couple of our staff. So I'll do the work item first. And that is, Ms. Krishna had sent me an email yesterday regarding the Village of Indiantown wanting to have some type of festival at Timer Powers Park in January. Now, using our parks for a festival or, renting it as something is usually not a big deal, but this is something of a larger scale. I think they're looking to incorporate Degler attractions. And while I'm not asking for your approval on anything today, but I would look to schedule something on January 14th for your approval. But some of what they would be asking for is the waiver of fees on certain activities. And then, of course, another big thing would be insurance. I think we'll be working with our insurers, given the fact that you have attractions there. I'm reluctant to waive the insurance fees on something of that magnitude, but we'll be meeting with you individually. But I just want to let you know that that's under consideration, and that with your, yes.
January 14th meeting, I had a brief conversation with Ms. Krishna. Their event is in the middle of January. I don't know how they would plan to have that event if they don't know what we're thinking. If this group votes it down or sideways, how are they going to promote for the next 30 days? They'd have to pull the plug on it, like almost on top of the event. So I would double check the dates of her event.
No, it's January 23rd. So what I'm looking for is that their ability to use the park would be okay. I think it would be the condition of you all may limit what fees you waive, but if they're willing to participate 100% in fees and insurance, if you're okay with that, then I will continue to work with them and bring forward any waivers they want to do. So perhaps the only thing I'd be asking you to do on January 14th would be the fees and the and that type of thing. So that was my concept, is really looking to. So I would like, if they are trying to move that quickly on a large event, then at least head nod saying that yes, the village could use our park for a couple of days, but they need to at this point in time, I'd say they need to comply with all our rules, but they can ask for a waiver, not guaranteeing that anything would happen.
Would you be able to provide us with the fees that are normally charged for an event, and then?
Yes, I could, yes, well, that would be part of our, our discussion, yes, so I think this is a significant item. I apologize for bringing it to you, but it just came up, so, and if you're unable to make a recommendation, then they would have to carry forward at their risk. So what I'm asking then is for to allow the administrator to continue to work with the village on the use of the park, and that any of the waiver of fees, insurance would be subject to board approval in January. That.
Yes?
No, I don't. We may not be able to waive insurance. I don't, without, they can ask for it, but I don't think we can.
I'm sorry to just blurt in,
Sure.
but I don't know from a liability standpoint that I'd recommend waiving insurance. We have sovereign immunity, and the Indiantown has some, but the entertainment providers, if there was any private businesses, we don't do that in our parks ever.
Right.
So, for example, the air show they use our airport, but their vendors have to provide proof of insurance. So I don't know that I would.
I wasn't recommending. I know they were asking for it.
Yes.
But so we could take that off the table. I'm happy with that. So.
Yes, definitely maintain the insurance on them. Every entertainment facility or concert has to carry insurance, absolutely. Even you're selling Christmas trees on a lot, you own a vacant lot that you pay taxes on, you definitely want them to carry insurance and sufficient insurance.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I said, or some people don't pay taxes on them.
Well, that may be too, but I'm just saying it covers the cost, you know.
I had a thought, and this came up during the rodeo, that this is not pertaining to this item, but I know that it was a major ordeal that some insurance carriers don't even offer the limits that we were asking for that particular, and I don't believe it was rodeo related. I just think at another agenda item somewhere down the line that you bring back what our requirements, or we have a discussion what we required, because I do remember the rodeo, they had a hard time getting insurance. There was one provider for that, and it was, I want to say, above $10,000 or more.
Commissioner Cantor.
I think we need to basically give our opinions now. I understand that it came up on short notice, but if our next meeting is January 14th and their event is January 26th, did you say?
23rd through 26th, that's what they're.
I think we've given you some of the key points. We're not interested in waiving any of our insurance requirements. Mr. Abate is here in terms of, I don't even know what the fees would potentially be in terms of waiving them. Can you share with us, like, what would the fees be for that?
Good evening, Kevin Abate, Parks and Recreation Director. We haven't looked into it yet. We just were made aware of it. We do have a fee schedule that has fees that range up based on participation. You know, if it's up to 1,000 people, we don't have that information back to evaluate what the fee would actually be. We do know that the schedule is clear, meaning that they could use the park, so it is available. And we also, relative to insurance, we did reach out to risk management to ask them if they could ask Trico, our insurance carrier, what the limits would be for a fair. So they're going to provide us.
It's a heritage festival.
Yeah. But I think they have amusement rides that they're willing to do. Festival, sorry. So they're reaching out to the St. Lucie Fairgrounds to see what their limits are for those attractions. So if St. Lucie Fairgrounds, the limits are set by Trico, they'll let us know what those limits are, and then we'll let them know.
Who do we waive fees for?
We have a board-approved fee waiver policy for not-for-profits that have been established for 3 or more years and meet the criteria for special event fees. So we have that by policy, and upon request, and of course.
I don't think they meet that criteria.
The other point that they wanted to make, and Mr. Donaldson had just briefly said it, the possibility of using Degler Amusements, which would be outside of the scope of some of the activities we allow on park property. I don't have a problem with that. Degler is a Martin County-based, multi-generational business. They are professionals. I'm sure they maintain all of their own insurance. It's the same group that they've used at a similar situation that they've had here on Dixie. I know that was one of the collaborations that they were looking to do, so I don't know if you'd need direction to allow that level of amusement, but I would not be opposed to that.
One of the things to consider is that we currently have a board-approved policy that prohibits amusement rides on county property, park property. Specifically, was over a decade ago. So we'd have to actually not amend that policy. Maybe this is an exception to that policy. So we currently have.
I don't like exceptions.
I do not either.
Well,
Yeah, and that would be an item that would have to come back in
That's a
January.
January 14th.
Okay, so why don't we just leave it for January 14th? If you want to speak with us individually and say, these are the fees we normally charge, and kind of get an opinion from us, then we're ready to go, put that right at the top of the list. Somebody calls Indiantown. Because the Heritage Festival is not for profit, it's a for-profit enterprise, putting that on.
You know, we don't know much about it at this point, and so that's why I'm reluctant to put anything hard and fast. This is actually helpful direction on working with the village and trying to help them understand the risks of the level of approval that I can give them at this point versus trying to move forward on a January 23rd date. And so it certainly seems that What I'm hearing is certainly they need to have insurance. If they're going to have amusement rides,
If we don't allow amusements on county property, it's a no.
then yes, if they're going to have amusements, right. So that would be something that we need to further consider, so.
Well, I believe that they were interested in having amusements based on my conversation with them. I'm not necessarily opposed to having a professional amusement company. I agree with my colleagues, exceptions are not necessarily the right strategy, but amending the policy that opens the door for all of this to happen, I think that there's certain level of organizations and events that might be able to take place. You know, we own I get that there's a separate lease for the fairground property that's owned by the county. So I don't know if this is a Western Martin County collaboration with Indiantown out on our property. I'm not personally opposed to having amusements. I think it meant to be like similar to carnival-type amusements like games, a midway of food items, and potentially some rides. We could maybe say we don't want, I don't know how they rate rides, if they have, light rides, medium rides, and heavy rides, or,
Well, let's not, I don't think we're prepared to approve any type of ride today. I think that's way too detailed. So I think my communication with the village will be that if it's a typical use of our facilities that doesn't violate any current policies, they can move forward. If it requires an amendment, it's going to require a separate board action so we can have our TRICO insurance vet all the different issues on whether we would have a recommendation to amend. Because like we see, we don't know if it's full Degler show with all the rides, or is it just food court and But so anyway, I think that would be the direction I'm hearing, is that without the only thing that we can move forward on at this point is a typical park use operation, and any amendments that would be required would require board action, and that couldn't happen until January
14th.
January 14th.
And if I'm part of that group, which I'm not, there's no way to have an event a week later, because you'd have to be promoting it starting basically now. So what do you promote? So I think the conversation was constructive, because if I was part of that organizing group and I listened to what we just discussed, I can't imagine how you could move forward with an event of the scale that they were discussing.
Do it in February, perhaps, so.
Which is when the...
Possible, be flexible on the date. February is a fine month. It's still
It's also Martin County Fair Month.
That's true, so don't make it on the same weekend. They keep going from midway to midway across the land.
All right, well, I'm sorry to drag us down with that conversation. Happy holiday. So let me end it. I wanted to get over that one first. Yes, a little green. Yes, I did want to say Susan Corres, who was here earlier, did get a special recognition from Martin Arts for their Eco Ripple project. That was excellent. I want to congratulate them on that.
I'm not familiar with it. Where's it located?
It's in Palm City. It's
Award-winning.
on the other side of the bridge there. And then the other is Narissa Okie. There's the new service of Florida recognizes women in government and public service, and she won a 2024 Above and Beyond for numerous activities, including Explore Martin and other programs they put together. And of course, so both of those women deserve our accolades for their great service to Martin County and being recognized statewide for their achievements. So.
Susan lives in Palm City.
So anyway, that and yes, a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Woods?
No, ma'am, I'll just assure the board that we'll research all the liability.
Yes, please do.
That's your holiday message. Let's have it.
Everyone has wonderful holidays.
Thank you.
Me too. Safe travels, happy holidays. We're adjourned.